Hello and welcome to Brands Hatch as we get set for rounds 5 and 6 of TCR UK. And as the championship continues to grow, we welcome a couple of new drivers onto the grid this weekend. But Dan Lloyd remains to be the driver to beat, as he proved once again at Knock Hill last time out.
The red lights go on. When they go out, we are racing for round number 3 of the TCR UK Championship. They go out now, and the cars launch over the hill down towards turn 1. Dan Lloyd makes a good start, and Ollie Taylor, as predicted, with the dry side of the road, gets into second place ahead of Aidan Moffat. So Lloyd leads into the hairpin, Taylor second, Moffat there in third place, and look at Lewis Kent. Darryl Wilson's up in the gravel. Oh, Darryl Wilson, he got loose turning into Clark's there. You can only assume that was a cold tyre issue. Ollie Taylor loses it through the left-hander. He's all over the grass. Moffat will go through. Beckman will go through. And right on cue, that was the mistake that Aidan Moffat was looking for. And well and truly stuck in the gravel is Lewis Kent. And this could be a safety car. Finley Crocker's off now as well. Completely out of control, Finley Crocker. Well, 10 out of 10 for style. Aidan Moffat, I'm seeing on the timing screen, is dropping down the order as well. How can we lost the local hero somewhere out on circuit? There is confirmation. There's Aidan Moffat's car. There's no damage done to it. He's just pulled off the road. Josh Price has got himself up into second place. There's more contact there between Andreas Beckman and Ollie Taylor. And Josh Price, through it all, has come past the pair of them. So Josh Price, remarkably, has come from the very back of the grid into second place. It's a Honda Civic battle for second place, and Josh Price is wide at the hairpin. He's on the dirty side of the road, and Taylor's going to go through. He's going to lean on Price, and he does get second place back. What a race this has been. Ollie Taylor has been up and down the field several times, like the proverbial yo-yo. Oh no, Darryl Wilson has collided with Finley Crocker, who is a lap down. So what on earth happened there? Dan Lloyd wins round number 3 of the TCR UK Championship. Ollie Taylor comes home second, and Josh Price will be third. And what a battle those two had. Round number 4 of TCR UK is go. It's a good start by Walkinshaw. Lewis Kent again makes a really good start. He's up alongside Darryl Wilson for second place. He's ahead into second place. So it's Walkinshaw from Kent, the top 2, and Lewis already into the back of Walkinshaw, who's sideways. Oh, right in front of the pack. Lewis Kent up the inside of him, but that was very physical indeed. Look at Josh Price going charging around the outside as well. 2 wheels on the grass for Josh Price, but Lewis Kent has the race lead. Walkinshaw second. Wilson just about chopped across in front of Price for third. Price for second, up the inside of Walkinshaw. Look at the cars dancing around under braking, and it will be Josh Price that goes through. And now we turn our attention to the timing screen with interest to see what sort of lap times he can put in. Lewis Kent's season just isn't getting going, really, is it? Right, Dan Lloyd is with Josh Price now. He has caught the race leader. He's gone through. How on earth did he do that? Dan Lloyd has gone through. Well, there we go. That answers my question. No, he hasn't met his match in Josh Price. Dan Lloyd is leading the race, and he got there an awful lot quicker than I thought. Sells the dummy, makes Jessica think he's not going to go for it, and then launches up the inside. Oh, Jessica turns in though. Oh no, and there's contact, and they're both off. Both out wide. Is there damage done to Taylor's car? I think there is. Ollie Taylor, this is big, big drama as far as one of our championship contenders are concerned. And looking back for third place, Walkinshaw has to defend. Beckman goes to the outside line. Darryl Wilson's in there as well, looking for a podium. This could get messy. Beckman outbreaks himself, and Wilson seizes the opportunity. Brilliant stuff from Darryl Wilson into 4th position. And this is a very familiar sight indeed. 4 wins from 4 for West Coast Racing, and Dan Lloyd extends his championship lead. Josh Price is second, Sean Walkinshaw third.
The Brands Hatch Indy circuit is short but sweet, affording the drivers challenging corners where accuracy and a certain degree of bravery is required. For the fans, well, it typically provides close racing with bags of overtaking, making it ideal for touring car racing. And we caught up with Lewis Kent to talk us through a flying lap.
Hi guys, it's Lewis Kent here in the i30 and TCR. I'm going to take you through a lap around Brands Hatch. So coming down here, 5th gear, flat out at the moment. We'll be looking for your braking point. It's about the 2 board, on the brakes, down 1 gear to 4th, turning in nice and early, back on the throttle, picking it up, and then getting that drop in, getting the grip in. Coming up the hill, staying in 4th, on the brakes, down 2 gears, turning in and literally squeezing the throttle on all the way through, letting it run out, and then back on the throttle, up 1 into 3rd here, on the brakes again, turning in, little bit of curb, back on the exit, on the throttle, up 1 into 4th, and you have a little bit of a rest here, lifting off, turning back in, flat out through here again, on the brakes, down 1, turning in, squeezing that throttle on nice and gently, trying to just get the car rotate nicely, but back on the throttle, down the straight, up to 5th, and that's a lap. Bit tricky, bit twisty, but you can get it around in a nice time.
Just a few tenths of a second could be the difference between several rows on the grid here at Brands Hatch, as yesterday's qualifying session proved. Once again, Dan Lloyd seizing pole position 3/10 of a second ahead of Ollie Taylor, who himself was only 3/1000ths of a second ahead of Andreas Beckman. Lewis Kent, Jessica Bettman and then Josh Price completed that top 6, and here's what the top 3 had to say after that intense qualifying.
It was great. It was hard work, really hard. I mean, it's always hard work. People say it looks easy, but it's never easy. We got there right at the end. The car wasn't handling like we expected it would. It took a bit of work throughout the session, but yeah, got it together at the end. It is a lot closer here. I think guys are learning the cars a lot quicker and they're getting there now. So I think it is going to be closer, especially around Brands Hatch Indy. It's always close racing. But yeah, I mean, we're doing a great job, both myself and the team. You know, the car wasn't what we expected today, and we worked really well together with my engineer. We made countless changes during the session. We're not just walking it, you know, we are having to work for it, and the guys are doing a really good job.
What was the problem with the car? What can you tell us?
It handled differently from FP2 to qualifying. Whether it was the heat, I don't know. In the FP2, the rear was quite planted. Qualifying, it was quite loose. So we had to make some changes to that to obviously improve it, and got there at the end. So yeah, massive thanks to West Coast Racing, and really happy that my teammates did a good job as well. You know, Andreas is 3rd, just missing out on 2nd, and Jessica did a mega job to get top 5. So as long as I can keep the lead, then I'll hold them off. It's going to be an interesting race tomorrow. It's 30 minutes, you know, it's probably like 37 laps. So I think we're all in a bit the unknown in terms of how the tyres are going to handle. So yeah, I think we're all a bit in the dark there. So it'll be about tyre management mostly.
Pleased with that. It was a good quali. Front row start. Open to be a bit closer to Dan, but that was a really good lap of his there. So yeah, overall very happy. Front row, my best lap. And yeah, car was great. First time out in the new car. Yeah, fantastic.
What is the difference between this, the FK07, compared to the 2 that you had before?
Yeah, so obviously it's just the next model on from the Honda Civic range, Type R. All in all, the car's not too dissimilar. It's the same engine, gearbox, drivetrain, apart from the rear suspension's independent rear suspension instead of just a sort of a rear axle. So the characteristics, the handling characteristics are slightly different to the old cars, more stable. And to be honest, I'm a bit more comfortable in it. And some of the corners here at Brands, where they're sort of quite fast entry, blind corners, off camber, I'm certainly more comfortable in the car, throwing it in at high speeds than what I would have been in the old one. So yeah, a bit of an advantage to me. Race 1, first row, front row. We'll see what we can do. Hopefully get a good start. Let's not count anything out. Got to get the thing off the line as yet. Obviously I haven't done a start in this car yet, so that'll be interesting. And then race 2, yeah, I always love coming through the pack. Dan's behind me. I need to keep him behind me a little bit. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, Brands Indy always a little bit of a tricky place to overtake, maybe. So just hope for 2 good starts, get everyone through the first corner cleanly, and see how it goes.
It was really a good qualifying. I'm really glad with the 3rd place. It was really good, I think. Yeah, I think the first corner is really hard, and also turn 4 at the fast left corner. It takes quite a bit of confidence, but it's really a fun track, I think. A podium would be really nice, I think. I think we have a really good car, and yeah, I think a podium is my goal for tomorrow. So.
Yeah, some pretty happy drivers there. You heard Andreas at the end. They got some goals for tomorrow, and the goals he's looking for are directly ahead of you right now. Dan Lloyd sitting on pole position, as we saw, as has happened in every single race so far. Dan just about to get into the car right now. In fact, we'll quickly grab him. Dan, before you get your lid on, we spoke to you yesterday about the qualifying. Now today, track conditions ideal for you and a lot of empty space up there.
Yeah, it should be good. Obviously, the main goal is to get to the first corner in front, and then go from there. It's going to be an interesting race. We're doing about 37 laps, which is quite unknown around here, especially for front-wheel drive cars. And this heat as well, so it'll be about managing tyres. So we don't know what to expect. I don't think a lot of others do. So, yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, I think tyre management's going to come into it a huge amount. Good luck, Dan, all right? Yeah, mentioning tyre management, actually talking to a lot of the drivers, tyre management is something that every single one of them has spoken about. It's one of these things that it's a 30-minute race, and around here, 37, 38 laps. The first 15 minutes, the first, say, 15, 20 laps around here are going to be a real eye-opener. You might find some cars start to drop off after 15 laps, something like that. Lewis Kent is looking very, very quick out on track, and we know he's got the pace. We saw him do the qualifying lap just there. And let's go and speak to Jessica, because, well, Jessica has finally got everything together on one lap. And if we just glance up to pole position to Dan up there, we have the 3 Golfs, one after the other, first, third and fifth on the grid. Now, Jessica, if we think about how she's done in the last few rounds, she did 8th, a 6th, a 7th and a 6th, so she's getting quicker and quicker and quicker. Jessica, if we just dive in, let me just close the door so we get the camera through. Jessica, pretty good position where you are right now on the grid, and looking ahead of you, it's teammates the whole way.
Yeah, it's very fun when we are West Coast Racing 135, so we try to follow them to the first corner and try to get everyone on the podium. That will be fun.
But of course, you've got some very fast cars to your left-hand side. Ollie Taylor there looking very quick in that brand new Civic for him, and of course Lewis Kent as well. They're both looking very fast.
Yeah, they're both very fast, so it will be a tight race, but I will do everything I can to get up on the podium.
Do you have any particular strategy at the moment, considering tyre degradation?
I think the tires will go off a lot in the end, so I will try to keep the tires as fresh as I can and drive from there.
Good luck to you there, Jessica Backman. She is looking pretty quick, like I say, and for the first time, everything seems to be coming together for Jessica out on track. Now, if we head a little bit further down, I just want to grab hold of 2 drivers that we didn't see last time out in Knock Hill, and they weren't there because they were changing their gearbox over. They had the DSG, and now they've moved over to the sequential. They've got Stuart Lyons to one side, but let's go and see. Let's go and see Stuart, because I can see Carl's already been chatted to right now. Let's just dive in here. Let's get this mesh down if we can do. Oh, we can't. It's tied up. Let's see if I can get it. There we are. Undo all the good work from the team here for you, Stuart. It's hard to do this one-handed. We'll just do it this way. So, Stuart, you had that time of not being here for Knock Hill. You must be chomping at the bit right now.
Yeah, it's been good to be back, and I think cars feels really good at the minute. It's down to us, really. Me and Carl have tried to work out a few things, and at least we're not giving too much away now, so we've got a chance. But as you know, Saturday's always a nicer day because there's not many incidents. On Sunday, all the serious stuff starts.
And of course, the car performing so much better since you moved away from the DSG. So everything that you did, you think was now right. So missing Knock Hill and having that time to actually get everything sorted out in the car seems to be the right decision.
Oh yeah. I think the DSG gearbox that these cars come with, if you can have an option to come with, they're for endurance racing, really. And you know, for this kind of racing, you've got to have a decent gearbox with a diff in it. So it's looking better.
It's great to see you back, so good luck as well. And another bit of news, actually, is that Stuart has joined up with teams, really, with Carl Swift over there. They've pulled their resources. And actually, what they were telling me before we came live was that they only have one setup, and that is essentially a race setup. So in qualifying yesterday, they were in race trim. They were in their race setup. That's the only way they can actually drive these cars. And because of that, they think they might be able to do quite well because they're already going to be able to deal with that tyre degradation that we were talking about earlier on. It is very, very hot. It's very, very sticky out here. Air temperature pretty warm as well, so the engines aren't going to be performing maybe at their very, very best. If we look around the grid back here, Howard Fuller, he is struggling slightly. Very, very determined. Howard was saying to me before we went live that he is extremely determined. He's going to go out there and get, well, everything he can, but he has got slight problems here in that if we have a quick glance at his rear tyres, these are old rear tyres. So he's got old rear tyres on there, going to be struggling for a little tail grip, which is going to cause him problems. But again, who knows what's going to happen as the race goes on. And looking further back, we're going to run over to see Alex Morgan. Now, Alex races in Germany, in TCR Germany, and is here this weekend at Brands Hatch to get more testing from this car. Alex, just saying about the fact that you've been racing in Germany and you're here really to get some more testing in the car right now.
Yes, we've been making a lot of changes to the car recently, so this was a perfect chance to test them out and also to sample TCR UK. So we've learned a lot and hope we'll learn a few more things in the next few races.
Now, you're also telling me that you've had a few issues along the way in the last day and a bit. So do you think you've got those problems ironed out, or is this one of these things we're going to see in the next 5 minutes?
They seem to be a temporary fix, and it's a 50-50 whether they'll work or not. So we'll know pretty soon on in the race whether they do work. Fingers crossed, and we'll see how we get on.
Well, good luck. Thanks very much there, Alex. Now, one of the issues that he does have was a power steering issue. So he was actually having to change gear. He hasn't got flappy panels, actually having to change gear manually, taking one hand off the wheel. And with no power steering, that was really, really causing him problems in the car, getting so hot, particularly in these extra warm, extra moist conditions. So we're going to see. He actually said after qualifying that he was done. He was so exhausted. So it's going to be hit and miss really for Alex. We'll see over the next, I don't know, 5 laps, something like that, to see really how he's coping. And Darrell Wilson, we know he has got pace, but he is struggling with power. He's down on power at the moment, and that's something that he's looking at, hopefully, for the next rounds at Castle Combe. That's it for me, though. What we're going to do is head straight over to our commentator, Andy McEwen, who's going to talk us through the grid, and I think a whole lot more. Andy, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Bryn. Very much looking forward to this one. We've had... It's our third race meeting of the year now for TCR UK, but this has been by far and away the most open, the most competitive. Yes, Dan Lloyd is on pole position again. Yes, he's been quick all weekend, but the chasing pack are getting ever closer with every session that goes by, and we've got Ollie Taylor there on the front row alongside, and I've spoken to Ollie a few times over the course of the weekend. Ollie is well and truly up for this, and I think we're going to be in for a great race between the two of them. Great to see so many people here as well this weekend at Brands Hatch, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the summer sort of festival atmosphere that we've got around the natural amphitheatre of the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, a packed grid that is now starting to be cleared as we get ever closer to race time. And yes, it's going to be a really intriguing 30 minutes. 30 minutes, we've said all season long, is an awfully long time for a touring car race. Touring car races tend to be short, sharp, 20-minute dashes. Adding those extra 10 minutes in adds some real tactics to the mix. You've got to look after your tyres, you've got to look after your brakes, and that is even more important in these really warm conditions. Get a chance here, a last chance to wander up the grid from the back to the front. Stuart Lyons there on the left, Finley Crocker in the Verizon Connect car, and he has been saying that it's been really beneficial for him having Ollie Taylor now also driving the new Shape FK7. They're able to pool resources a little bit. Josh Price has been off the pace a little bit all weekend, but did find some more before qualifying. And then the first of those West Coast cars, Jessica Beckman in 5th place, her best qualifying for the year so far. Lewis Kent up there as well, 4th on the grid, 3rd for Andreas Beckman, and Ollie Taylor and Dan Lloyd making up that front row of the grid. 4th place for Lewis Kent is equaling his best qualifying of the year. He qualified 4th at Silverstone at the start of the season as well. Jessica Beckman with her best qualifying of the year. Dan Lloyd in that very familiar position, pole position. But at Brands Hatch, that is a bit of a double-edged sword. Yes, you're at the front of the grid, but you're not on the preferred line. The outside line is the grippier line for the start of a race, and you also have your sloping downhill from the outside of row 1, so you have gravity on your side. That can play into the hands of Ollie Taylor. Green flag lap then gets underway. The last chance for the drivers to check out the circuit, see what conditions are like, get some heat into the tyres, which sounds ironic since the biggest issue this weekend has been tyres overheating, but nonetheless this is their last sighting lap before the race. Here's the grid then, confirmation of the grid. Dan Lloyd on pole position from Ollie Taylor by about 3/10 on the second. Andreas Beckman heads Lewis Kent on the second row of the grid, and they're both really fired up. Jessica Beckman likewise 5th, she's always racy, and Josh Price looking to try and put some misfortune from yesterday behind him from 6th. Finley Crocker is 7th in the second of the FK7 Civics, and Stuart Lyons in 8th in the first of the 2 Cupras. The second one is not Carl Swift ninth on the grid alongside Howard Fuller, who said he has eyes only for the front and he will do anything it takes to get there. Alex Morgan in the Megane, great to see the Megane making its debut in the UK, a really new project, that Megane TCR car, and they are just ironing out a few little kinks. Daryl Wilson lining up 12th on the grid. Now, we were supposed to have an extra couple of cars out there, both of the DPE Motorsport Alfa Romeo Giuliettas, unfortunately, Rob Gilmore and Derek Palmer, have had problems. And speaking of problems, Stuart Lyons' car, well, it's left the grid, but hasn't gone much further. It can't make it up the hill to Paddock Hill Bend. Now, this may well mean that we have a delayed start, because that car is, has it fired up? Is it going? There's a bit of a conversation going on. Let's hope it can get going, because it will be good to see Stuart out there. No, they're signalling that it needs a tow, so that's a real shame. The D&G recovery truck is already on hand, but this may well mean that we get a delayed start and possibly a second green flag lap. We'll have to wait and see, but that's a shame for Stuart, because he and Carl Swift really were looking forward to this weekend, and they're looking for a good grid position in race 2 as well, which we'll get on to a little bit later on, but with their sequential gearboxes in those cars now, and the fact that they're both running under the Maximum Motorsport banner, that means that they've really been able to work together and save themselves an awful lot of time during the pre-practice sessions, and therefore they were hoping that would lead to a real upturn in performance during the races. Cars are lining up on the grid, but I'm fairly certain that we will have a delayed start situation, that being the reason, because the recovery is still ongoing. Team members running out onto the circuit now to try and fix whatever the drama is for Stuart Lyons, but that is a real shame for the Midlander, who has been really up for it this weekend, really felt that he could be on for some good results. He and Carl Swift likewise. Well, the car is being towed away. Now we need to wait and see whether we're going to get another green flag lap, because of course the car's been sat on the grid for... Oh, it's fired up now. Well, that's always the way, isn't it? Now, can he come back round and retake? The race hasn't started yet, so I see no reason why he can't retake, if not his original grid position, at least he should be able to start from the pit lane or from the back of the grid. So that is good news, but of course there is clearly some sort of underlying issue, possibly an electrical issue of some sort. He's giving the car a bit of a workover on its way back round to the pit lane, but is this going to be a race start, or is it going to be a secondary green flag lap? Well, seems okay, there's no smoke, there's nothing hanging off it, it's just conked out as it made its way off the grid, so and then suddenly fired back into life. So the Maximum Motorsport car number 95 of Stuart Lyons, that was due to start 8th on the grid, may or may not be able to retake 8th on the grid. Let's see if he heads into the pit lane. No, he's heading onto the grid, so he clearly feels that whatever the issue was, it's sorted now. And are they going to wave him in at the back of the grid? Looks like they are, yes. They're going to put him in behind Alex Morgan and alongside Daryl Wilson. So Stuart Lyons presumably will take the start from the back of the grid as we get a second green flag lap. So let's try this again, and we'll keep our eyes on that green and white Seat at the back of the grid to see whether it hits any similar issues this time around. It looked like the car was moving, so I lied when I said that the last green flag lap was the last opportunity the drivers would have to check out the circuit, because they now have another opportunity to do so. I don't think it's going to take any time off the race, though. We should still be able to run to the full 30 minutes as Finley Crocker in the Verizon Connect car. Gives me a chance maybe to just give you a little bit more information about the championship standings. We saw them briefly earlier on after the highlights from Knock Hill. Dan Lloyd, unsurprisingly, with 4 wins from 4 pole positions, is on 182 points, maximum points scored by Dan Lloyd. In fact, that was coming into the weekend. He's now scored another 11 points, because you scored points for qualifying, 11 points for pole, 9 for second, 8 for third, and so on, down to 1 point for 10th. So after qualifying yesterday, Dan Lloyd moves through onto 193 points. Second place is Andreas Beckman on 124, and Ollie Taylor third on 118. So he has closed the gap slightly to Andreas. Of course, Ollie had that non-finish in race 2 at Knock Hill after he tangled, ironically, with Andreas' sister Jessica late on in race 2, put him into the gravel and out of the race. Ollie Taylor is looking for another upturn in pace this weekend. Well, very quickly before the race gets underway, I believe that Bryn has an update from the pit lane for us.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy. I was just talking to Stuart Lyons' team, and they were telling me that the actual problem was the air jacks, the pneumatic jacks, if only I could say it, had dropped down. So they actually had come back out of place, and they're not sure why, but then they got the problems fixed, and off he went. So they're not sure why it happened, but that is what happened.
Right, okay, that's a new one. That's not something we see very often, but at least we know it's not actually an issue with the car. provided it doesn't happen again, I suppose, but it seems okay at the moment. No, there's nothing hanging down underneath the car, so good stuff there. So thanks very much for that, Bryn. Bryn on the case, patrolling the pit lane over the course of our TCR UK weekend. So let's try this again. Dan Lloyd lines up on pole position. Strength in numbers, I suppose, for West Coast Racing, with all 3 cars inside the top 5 on the grid. But Ollie Taylor said to me yesterday that he reckons from the outside of row 1, he can challenge Dan Lloyd into Paddock Hill Bend. And if he can, he's not backing out of it. He wants a race victory in his shiny new Honda Civic FK7. What's going to happen? 30 minutes of racing about to get underway here from Brands Hatch. Round number 5 is go. Who makes the start from the front row of the grid? Looks like a fairly even one, but Taylor is alongside. Ollie Taylor is challenging for the race lead down towards Paddock Hill Bend, and he gets it. Ollie Taylor takes the race lead into Paddock, and he will lead Dan Lloyd out down the hill towards Druids. Jinks across to the right to defend, and he holds on to the race lead. So Taylor leads, Lloyd second, but Lewis Kent is coming up the inside as well now. Dan Lloyd, contact from Lewis Kent into the back of Dan Lloyd's car, and again, bang, bang. This is all allowing Ollie Taylor to escape. Lloyd is being assaulted left, right and centre. Kent now gets into the side of Andreas Beckman as well, who's sideways. Kent over onto the grass. It's all kicked off at the start of this race. Josh Price is in the mix as well. More contact. Oh, Beckman goes around in front of the pack. Let's hope they all avoid it. They do. No. Howard Fuller's off. Howard Fuller and Finley Crocker tangle, and finally we have a car properly off the road, and unfortunately it is Howard Fuller. But how on earth that didn't wipe out half the field, I will never know. Ollie Taylor leads at the end of the opening lap. Dan Lloyd is second, a huge gap back to somehow still Lewis Kent there in 3rd position. Josh Price is 4th, Jessica Beckman is 5th, and Andreas Beckman, rather wound up after all of that, I'd imagine, is down in 6th place. Crocker is 7th, Swift is 8th, Stuart Lyons is already back to 9th, with Alex Morgan rounding out the top 10. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a real fight on our hands. Ollie Taylor versus Dan Lloyd. Ollie said that if he could get in front of Dan, he really felt that he could get his elbows out and become the first different winner in the season. Remember, Dan has won all 4 races so far this year, and Ollie Taylor is determined to bring that run to an end here at Brands Hatch. Hard on the brakes though, Lloyd's on the inside of him. Are they going to lean on each other? No, they just about keep it clean. I notice Ollie Taylor's fuel filler cap has come loose, but that won't be bothering him too much now as he powers back onto the pit straight. Ollie Taylor in this beautiful new FK7 Civic. They've done a really good job with the paint scheme on that car for this weekend, and it is leading the way from Dan Lloyd in 2nd, Lewis Kent in 3rd, Josh Price in 4th, has just set the fastest lap of the race, so he is coming and closing in on the Hyundai in front of him. Up towards Druids we come once more. There is Kent, there is Price, then the 2 Beckmans, Jessica ahead of Andreas, but Andreas had Finley Crocker looking up the inside there, I think, as they went up towards the right-hander at Druids. We'll check back in on those in a moment or two. Out of Graham Hill Bend though goes Ollie Taylor, leading Dan Lloyd down towards the left-hander at Surtees. 100 miles an hour at the apex through this left-hander. It's a daunting corner, and then hard on the brakes, turning through the right. It's bumpy, it's uphill, and then the road drops away dramatically on the exit of the corner, and in front-wheel drive touring cars, particularly as the tyres start to go away, understeer becomes a real issue at that part of the circuit. Now, Dan Lloyd is an awful lot closer this time as we make our way up towards Paddock Hill Bend. Taylor knows it, drives down the middle of the road there. That's the defensive line into Paddock, but that can then slow you down on the exit, and that's what Dan Lloyd is hoping for as he tries to carry more speed up the hill towards Druids. Can't get himself alongside for the time being, though. Goes back to the outside line as he turns his way in towards the right-hander, cocks a rear right wheel. Don't tell me that Dan Lloyd's just been taking it easy this year. He wants to win every race. He wants to be at the top of the times in every session, and he is willing to push to the limit to do it. But he's going to have to push to the limit, I think, to do it this weekend, because Ollie Taylor is very much the match for him so far. Lloyd just nicked that fastest lap back away from Josh Price, by the way, so 49.8 is the first sub-50-second lap as they turn their way through the right-hander back onto the pit straight again. Lloyd at this stage of the race does look quicker, but Ollie was saying to me that the Honda Civics, both the new shape and the old shape Civic, really seem to look after their tyres well. Remember, we still have 26.5 minutes left of this race. If you just hang on for the first half of the race, who knows, the pendulum could swing back in his favour through the second half. That seems to be where Lloyd is quickest, through Paddock, but so far at least, Ollie Taylor has been defending well. Finley Crocker now sets the fastest lap of the race, back in 7th position as he continues his pursuit of Jessica and Andreas Beckman. Of course, Ollie Taylor, as he starts defending, he is holding both himself and Dan Lloyd up. They were 4/10 slower than Lewis Kent and Josh Price behind them on the previous lap, and Lewis is only 1.6 back. There is Lewis, look, the orange and white Hyundai. Now, that could actually benefit Ollie Taylor, because if he can back Dan Lloyd up, oh, Lloyd at the inside, out of absolutely nowhere. Dan Lloyd goes for the race lead. There's a bit of contact. He leans on Ollie Taylor and he goes back through. So, Dan Lloyd, forget what I was about to say about Ollie Taylor hanging on to the race lead. Dan Lloyd has got the lead back, and he will want to make good his escape, because Taylor Taylor will fight back if there's half an opportunity. Has a look to the inside into paddock, but Dan is very late on the brakes, just about gets it across to the apex, and now he tries to pull away off into the distance. But if Taylor just sticks with him, manages the tyres, you never know what might happen through the second half of the race. He's got to watch out there because Lewis Kent is not far behind, and Josh Price is continuing to look racy. Fastest man on the track, or fastest driver, I should say, on the track last time out was actually Jessica Beckman in 5th position. Black and white warning flag going out to Josh Price. That will be presumably for exceeding the track limits. That's awfully early in the race to be being warned about track limits. If he does it again, he'll be given a 5-second time penalty, which would really ruin his race. Back out through clearways again, 5 minutes down. We're about to come through and complete the 6th lap of the race. Here's a replay. Dan Lloyd was an absolute country mile back, and that meant that Ollie Taylor didn't feel that he had to defend, but in the end it turned out he did, and that was a lovely clean move. A tiny bit of paint traded, but that was just a good, firm but fair move, and Ollie won't have any issues with that at all. I'm sure he would rather have kept Dan behind him, but at least the manner in which Dan got through was fair and clean. Has to be said, though, that Taylor is staying with him thus far. He was only a couple of tenths slower on the previous lap. He's managing to stay in the slipstream of Dan Lloyd's West Coast Racing VW Golf. There's confirmation that Finley Crocker has set the fastest lap. He's also found a way past Andreas Beckman now. So Finley Crocker is into 6th place and closing on this lead group. We might just be able to see him in the background. There he is. Finley Crocker has found a way past Andreas Beckman. You do wonder, though, whether Andreas's car has sustained some sort of damage from all of that contact on the opening lap, because he was right in the thick of it and got sideways on a couple of occasions. There's Carl Swift in the Maximum Motorsport prepared Cupra. This is the fight for 3rd place then. Lewis Kent in the Hyundai, the Honda Civic, the old shape FK2 Civic of Josh Price in 4th, and 5th place for Jessica Beckman, having by far her most competitive run of the season so far. Jess's best finish so far has been a pair of 6th places, so she's already potentially on for her best finish of the year so far, but she's actually looking quicker than the cars in front of her. There's her brother Andreas defending from Stuart Lyons, who will be very grateful that he was able to get that car out onto the grid, because he's launched up the order into 8th position now. Swift is 9th, Darrell Wilson is 10th, and Alex Morgan, potentially struggling with that issue with power steering, is down in 11th place. Howard Fuller, by the way, did rejoin from his first lap spin up at this part of the circuit, so he's running around at the back, but only 2.3 seconds behind Alex Morgan. The fastest lap of the race set by the race leader that time around, as Andreas Beckman runs a little bit wide. Look at Jessica, though. Jessica right with Josh Price now, and that Golf is quick, and Jessica is not afraid to get stuck in. We saw that at Knock Hill. She had a couple of bits of contact with a couple of different drivers, including, of course, that terminal contact with Ollie Taylor that put Ollie out of the racing race too. And Josh Price will be aware of that. I'm sure that Jessica, having come from a rallycross background, is well used to getting her elbows out, and if there isn't a gap, she's not averse to making a gap, and so perhaps Josh just needs to be careful where he's defending here. He doesn't want to leave the door open even a tiny bit as he goes defensive, though. He's allowing Lewis Kent to just escape slightly up the road from him. Back through McLaren's, bit of a lock up there as the unweighted right rear wheel of Josh Price's Honda Civic just snatches the ground, but they are definitely dropping back from Kent, and Finley Crocker is lapping about half a second quicker than these two, so this could yet become a three-way fight for 4th position before too much longer. Back on the brakes into Paddock Hill Bend. Quarter of a second officially is the gap between these two cars, but you can see it there. It's about a car length and a bit separating Honda from VW. Where is Finley Crocker? Finley Crocker has just lost a couple of places on that lap. Andreas Beckman and Stuart Lyons have gone through, because I just saw in the background the next car in line behind Jessica Beckman should have been Finley Crocker. It isn't, it's now her brother again, so 2 places lost somewhere on the previous lap for Crocker. Not sure where, possibly an off-track excursion somewhere, but we will see if we can catch up on what happened with him. Either way, he'll be looking to try and regain that ground as swiftly as possible. Back out through clearways then, 8.5 minutes to go. Dare I say it, things starting to calm down for the time being. The lead gap is still only 0.7 of a second. Ollie Taylor losing hardly anything to Dan Lloyd with each lap that goes by. This gap could not get much tighter. Another hint of a lock-up there for Josh Price. He turns his way into Paddock Hill Bend, but Jessica Beckman runs a little bit deep on the brakes into that corner as well. She said that that was the corner that all weekend long she's been struggling to get used to, and well, I'm not surprised, because there are racing drivers who have been driving this place for years, maybe even decades, and they still can't quite get Paddock Hill Bend right. It really is one of the most challenging corners in British motorsport, and Jessica, like her brother Andreas, of course, never having driven this place before this weekend, so she is learning every time she gets in the car, but really learning an awful lot more quickly at this stage of the season than maybe she was right at the start of the year. black and white warning flag for Howard Fuller, who will be even more frustrated and even more determined to make progress than he was at the start of the race. He's found a way past Alex Morgan, so he's now into 11th, but being warned for exceeding the track limits. As the lead gap, well, again, it's going out by 1/10 of a second every lap, but only by 1/10 of a second. And if this is Taylor looking after his tyres, then it could well be that he's playing the long game now that he's lost the lead. Andreas Beckman there with Stuart Lyons behind. Finley Crockenaker's in the background, is still going, so whatever the moment or the issue was, I'm not too sure, but it doesn't appear to have damaged the car. That's a shame. The McGann, well, this is a project very much in its infancy, and Alex competing in TCR Germany predominantly this year with the McGann TCR car, and he did the first round at Oschersleben and then elected to miss the next round in order to continue working on the car, and is using this weekend just to get a bit more seat time and to try and just iron out a few of the issues that they're having. And unfortunately it seems like that is still an ongoing problem. Black and white warning flag now for Ollie Taylor, who matches Dan Lloyd that time. In fact, was fractionally quicker than the race leader, possibly because he's been exceeding the track limits. That's no mechanic, but something's overheating there, isn't it? Possibly brakes, or could be power steering related, I guess, couldn't it? They're certainly delving deep in the Vukovic squad, who have flown over to support Alex this weekend, the team with which he runs in TCR Germany. So back with the action then, Andreas Beckman and Stuart Lyons there. They're still dicing over 6th position, but Stuart's best finish of the year so far, 8th. He had a 9th and an 8th back at Silverstone. There is Howard Fuller. So Howard Fuller has now, as we said, caught the back of the field. He passed Alex Morgan. He's now challenging Darrell Wilson, but then the next car is about 7.5 seconds up the road. Morgan is heading back onto the circuit, albeit quite tentatively, possibly because the leaders are about to appear on the scene at full racing speed. But Howard Fuller now trying his best to find a way past the struggling Vauxhall Astra. Darrell's been saying that he's just not had the pace, not had the power all weekend long, and he will be struggling potentially to keep Howard Fuller at bay. As that battle rages on, I believe we can head down to Bryn, who maybe has some Alex Morgan related news.
Yeah, that's right. Alex came into the pits, took on some fluids himself. Obviously, it's very hot out there on track. But they told me they're having a few electrical problems within the car, and that is what they're trying to fix. But what they've actually done is they've temporarily fixed it again, sent him back out. All they really want to do is get some time in that car out on track.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a glorified pair of test sessions for them, really. Of course, you get a lot of track time for your money with TCR UK. You get 2 30-minute races plus 2 30-minute practice sessions on the Saturday. Oh, Howard Fuller off in the gravel. Oh, dear me. Well, he's certainly pushing hard. He saw half a chance there to get up the inside of Darrell Wilson into clearways and just couldn't stop the car once he'd committed. So rather than running to the back of Darrell, he ran wide, got on the marbles, and the rest was history. Gets out of the gravel track, though, thankfully, but loses a couple of seconds. He had 3 seconds behind when he crossed the line that time. Back out of Druids comes Carl Swift. Carl Swift running in 9th position. About 2 seconds back from Finley Crocker. Well, look at that, you can see there just how close Howard Fuller came to colliding with the back of the green Astra. 5-second time penalty already for exceeding track limits for Josh Price in 4th position. Josh Price has already been given a 5-second time penalty. Now, he won't be happy with that, but of course we're running at a Motorsport Vision run circuit this weekend, so we have the dreaded track limit sensors, which are located just on the outside edges, or just over the outside edges of the red and white painted curbs, and if you trigger that sensor, it's a bit like a speed camera really on the road, so you get an automatic photo taken of your car, so that when you then go up to see the clerk of the course post-race and you try to claim that you didn't exceed the track limits, there's the visual proof there in front of you that you did. And already it would appear that Josh Price has done that once too many times for the clerk of the course's liking, and so a 5-second time penalty has been applied to this Autoglim BMR Academy car, which has been struggling for pace a little this weekend, but he is running well in 4th place on the road. But of course, once you add 5 seconds onto that time, he will lose quite a handful of positions. We'll see when the timing screen corrects itself this time, exactly where he falls in line. No doubt about where Dan Lloyd is, though. He's now 1.7 seconds clear of Ollie Taylor, so he is continuing just to build out this lead by a 10th or 2 a lap. And Ollie Taylor, 4.6 seconds clear of Lewis Kent, so actually Ollie will be fairly happy with that, I think. Of course, thinking ahead to race 2, he'll be starting ahead of Dan Lloyd for that one with the reverse grid, so not necessarily the end of the world if he finishes second in this one. The good points that Ollie really needs. Of course, Ollie came into this race on 118 points, just 6 points behind Andreas Beckman for 2nd place in the championship. So if he can finish where he is now, with Andreas down in 6th, he will move back into 2nd place. Dan Lloyd, though, looking to try and extend his championship lead. The West Coast Racing Squad looking to extend their team's championship lead as well, which was already getting on for 200 points of an advantage over Pyro Motorsport. Best Pyro car, of course, is Ollie Taylor in second. There's Lewis Kent third. There is Price. There is Andreas Beckman. Big lock up ahead for Lewis Kent. That's been a common sight this weekend, and he's been really going through his tyres at a rate of knots as a result of his aggressive driving style. But thus far, it's working well for Lewis, running in third position. 4.6 back from Ollie Taylor, running comparable lap times, really. Everyone pretty much running in the mid to high 50-second bracket now, so a couple of seconds off what they were doing in qualifying. That's because A, they've got a full tank of fuel, and B, they're trying to really manage the tyre wear. It's not quite as bright sunshine as we've had previously in the weekend, but it's still very warm, very humid, and the track temperature is still very high indeed. Right, shall we try this again, Howard? He's now caught Darrell Wilson again, and we're heading down towards the part of the circuit where he nearly got a bit too close for comfort to Darrell Wilson a few laps ago. Clearly got pace, because twice now he's been able to reel in the Astra, which locks up. It's actually the Astra this time that seems to be struggling with the braking. Fuller keeps it nice and neat and tidy, tries to carry some speed out onto the pit straight. Paddock Hill Bend is one of the better overtaking opportunities on the circuit, so if he gets a really good run in the slipstream, he could challenge, although it looks like that Astra is, if anything, a little bit quicker than the Civic in a straight line. Hard on the brakes, into the right-hander, and much quicker through there, much neater through there is Fuller, but where do you go with it? You can carry all the momentum in the world through Paddock Hill Bend, but where can you find the space? Has another look up the inside into Druid, but there was no real point in sticking the nose in too far, because in all reality, with now less than half the race to go, this may be the highest that Howard is able to get anyway. Oh dear, Alex Morgan back in, and this time it seems like it is for retirement, so power steering issues appearing to be very much still the order of the day. Oh, Fuller, Howard Fuller, one of the most exciting drivers to watch on the circuit, isn't he, Howard Fuller? He's always on it, always committed. Doesn't matter whether he's fighting for the lead of a race or for, as he is in this case, 10th place. He still wants to get every ounce of performance out of that car, but he very nearly again got into the back of Darrell Wilson's Astra there. He was definitely quicker, we've seen that. He's capable of running a good half a second or so a lap quicker than Wilson at this stage, but just needs to take his time, really. They're 13 seconds back of Carl Swift, and that time the mistake came from Darrell Wilson. Oh, they lean on each other on the exit of the corner. That seemed a bit unnecessary. Wilson on the inside line, Fuller goes through. So he made hard work of that, did Howard, but he has now found a way through into 10th position. Wilson now will try and follow him, see if he can come back at it maybe at this far end of the circuit, but he seems able to carry quite the same speed through Surtees, but then Howard might just open the door for him anyway if he keeps on with that sort of wayward antics. Back with our 4th place battle now, Josh Price and Jessica Beckman. I think I said Andreas a few laps ago. It is Jessica, of course, who's running better of the two Beckmans in this race in 5th. Andreas has been catching, though, and is now within a second and a half of this battle, so Andreas may be learning how to drive around whatever the damage is that's been done to that car. I'm fairly convinced there's some sort of damage been done, and Andreas is starting to find a bit of pace again towards the second half of the race. Of course, Josh Price has this 5-second time penalty to be applied, which hasn't yet been applied on the timing screen, so we assume it may be applied post-race. Well, having said that, in fact, as I said that, the message disappeared from the timing screen, so I'll say what I see, and what I see is that Josh Price is still running 4th on the timing screen, so let's, for argument's sake, say that he now doesn't have a time penalty, and he's running in 4th position. So, as far as we're aware, this is a genuine fight for position again now. It's possible, of course, that the team have appealed the decision, and potentially they have decided to reverse the decision. Well, before this really kicks off on the circuit over the final 10 minutes, let's hand back down to Bryn in the pits, who I believe has found a rather worn-out Alex Morgan.
Yeah, that's right. Alex Morgan here with me. Alex, not what we wanted to see is you standing here out of the car. Just talk us through what happened.
Well, like I said before the race, we were trying a few things, and it was 50-50 whether they were going to work or not. Some fixed the issues we had and some didn't, but the main one that we're struggling with is still the power. So we've got another thing to try for the next race, so fingers crossed that one will work, and hopefully we can leave you with a good race at the end of the day.
So the intention is to get it all fixed and be out there for race 2?
Yeah, the car runs, it's just obviously not running optimally, so we've got to try this other thing now and see if that fixes it, and if it does, we'll be in the race and fighting. So we're not here to make the numbers up, but we've got to do what we can.
Right, great stuff. We'll go and cool down.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks, Bryn. I think that's good advice there for Alex Morgan, who's been working for his money this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. Now, this is the battle for 6th position. Andreas Beckman, Stuart Lyons and Finlay Crocker. Now, there's a crowd of exciting drivers to watch. All of these are, they tend to be in the thick of the action, don't they? And Finlay Crocker trying to recover from whatever the mystery issue was that he had about 15 minutes ago or so. And they are all continuing to close in on the Price and Jessica Beckman squabble. Although not on that particular lap, actually, because I think that Andreas has had to really start driving a bit more defensively now to keep Stuart Lyons at bay. Incidentally, at the front of the field, the lead gap is just inching back down again. Now, remember, we're getting into the realms of the race now, with nearly 2/3 of the race gone, where tyre wear is starting to become a bigger factor with every lap that goes by. And those who have managed their tyres better through the first 2/3 of the race may start to find an advantage in the last third of the race, and this is where Finlay Crocker, I think, will be finding an advantage, because we know that the Civics in particular look after their tyres very well, and he is really starting to attack Stuart Lyons here. So Finlay Crocker may be running an 8th at the moment, but he will sense an opportunity maybe to start improving upon that position. Back onto the pit straight, Beckman, Lyons and Crocker still the order. 3 different marks, of course, so we've got 7 different marks now represented in TCR UK this weekend, with the inclusion of Alex Morgan's McGann. And so you can see here through the midfield squabbles, there's actually nothing to choose between them. The VW, the Seat and the Honda are all running near identical lap times. And at this stage of the race, that's fairly impressive. Finlay Crocker running way deep there into Druids, but not yet able to draw fully alongside Stuart Lyons. Back out onto the Cooper straight again, and the gap's really ebbing and flowing. They are now, though, within 1.5 seconds of the Price and Jessica Beckman battle, who in turn are lapping, well, relatively similar pace to Lewis Kent in front of them. So it's starting to tighten up here as we get into the final part of this opening race of the weekend for TCR UK, round 5 of the 2018 championship. Fast approaching the midway point of the season. We've seen some sensational racing. Knockhill last time out was very entertaining, and this race has not failed to deliver either, has it? We've had so much drama in the early part of the racing. Some of the oh dear, Finlay Crocker for the 2nd lap in a row running wide there at Druids. Some of the racing we saw in those opening laps, that was proper touring car stuff, wasn't it? And it goes to show that TCR racing is just as exciting as any other touring car championship in the world, and that is why it's been taking the world by storm. Back through Surtees they go. These gaps, though, just starting to eke back out again, as Andreas Beckman's been able to shake off the attentions of Stuart Lyons for the time being, although Stuart seems really strong through the clearway section of the circuit. Really seems to close in on the Beckman car in front of him. Flash back through again, the gap comes down by 1/10 between the pair of Beckmans, and Jessica fractionally quicker than Josh Price. Dan Lloyd just 1.9 seconds now clear of Ollie Taylor, so he's reacted a little bit to Taylor's pace, although the previous lap he was 3/10 slower than Taylor. So I think even Dan is starting to struggle with tyre wear. The lap times have really dropped off. We're now 1.2 seconds off the outright pace that we had earlier on, so that goes to show that on a short lap like this, 1.2 seconds is an absolute age. So they really are starting to struggle for front end grip, and of course it's not just the grip goes away, but there is a potential, particularly if you've set your car off a bit too aggressively with camber settings and whatnot, there is the potential that you could wear the tyre right down to the canvas or even blow it out altogether. So there'll be a few panicky team members, I'm sure, down in garages, just hoping and praying that the drivers can get the cars through to the end without any major tyre problems. There is Lloyd, pulled back away from Taylor by 1/10 on the previous lap. Looks okay, but just not quite as pointy, not quite as sharp as it was earlier on. I'm sure Dan will be trying to measure this as well and just drive to a lap time, a certain lap time that's just quick enough to maintain the gap, but without having to really overwork the tyres too much. Dan, you can see now as the sun really comes out again here at Brands Hatch, that brilliant paint scheme, sort of iridescent paint scheme that they've got on these West Coast racing cars. They do look fantastic, and when you get the sunshine glinting off the bodywork, they look particularly fetching. So does this car, though. Ollie Taylor's new Civic has been performing really well this weekend. A real upturn in pace for Ollie, who's been quick all year, but just has that extra bit of confidence in this new car. And Ollie doesn't look as though he's going to be able to challenge Dan Lloyd perhaps in this race, but they'll make a few changes before race 2. As I said, he will be starting ahead of Dan. He'll be starting 9th on the grid in race 2 with the reverse grid race, but Dan will be 10th. And if he can get a couple of cars between himself and the championship leader in the early going, and who knows what he could achieve as the race goes on. Oh, Andreas Beckman and Stuart Lyons, finally Stuart's prized the door open. There was a bit of a mistake there from Andreas down at Graham Hill Bend. Andreas tries to close the door into Surtees, can't do it, and Finley Crocker's going to follow him through. Great opportunistic driving there from Finley Crocker to gain a place out of all of that. He read the situation brilliantly well. Stuart Lyons just had superior traction coming out of Graham Hill Bend, got up the inside of Andreas, and the rest was history. And then once, a bit NASCAR style really, isn't it? Once you get hung out to dry and there's a couple of cars behind you, the chances are they're both going to go through. And that was exactly the case there. You just spy Alex Morgan's car driving down the pit lane, so I wonder whether they've tempted Alex to get back into the car for the final 5 minutes just to shake down a few of the changes they might have made in preparation for race 2. Let's hope that they're able to show what that car can really do in race 2 later on. Whoops, Stuart Lyons not making friends with the apex there at Druids, but you are able to carry fairly good exit speed when you run wide at Druids because it's so steeply downhill, so although you leave the door open through the corner, you then carry some good speed off it. Finley Crocker carrying some good speed down the Cooper Straight there. He's well within striking range now. Could have a go at Stuart here on the brakes. He's looking to the inside. The car starts to duck and dive and wobble. Oh, he's all out of shape. Careful, Finley. That's going to open the door to Andreas Beckman to possibly come back at him side by side out through clearways. Honda on the right, VW on the left. And, well, that was Finley just determined to try and attack Stuart Lyons in front of him, but just pushed a bit too hard and ends up losing a place. And how your fortunes can change in just a split second. Beckman goes through. Finley will try to come back at him up towards Druids, goes to the inside, then back to the outside. Verizon Connect car has to stay in line behind. So, Stuart Lyons is slipping down our timing screen. We've lost him, haven't we? He should still be there in front of these two, who are making friends, coming out of Graham Hill Bend again. Finley Crocker, yes, there is Stuart Lyons, so it's clearly a transponder issue. So Andreas Beckman really having to defend now from Finley into the part of the circuit where Crocker had a go on the previous lap. He's a little more circumspect on the brakes this time, unsurprisingly, and so he is unable to find a way back past the Swedish driver. Beckmans who live in northern Sweden, actually inside the Arctic Circle, so they will not be feeling particularly at home in these very summery conditions. Mid-20s the temperature here at Brands Hatch this weekend. But Andreas working hard and is able now to pull back away from Finley Crocker for the time being. They've really lost ground though now to Stuart Lyons in front of them. So Stuart Lyons, who although he's showing on our timing tower down the left-hand side of the screen as being down in 11, I don't believe he is. Crocker though is all out of shape. They've got a wheel on the grass coming into Graham Hill Bend and then runs wide on the exit. That just loses him an extra car length or so to the car in front. So back through towards the final 3 minutes now goes, well, Lewis Kent there with that bit of trim that's been hanging off the car right from the word go pretty much. Had those bits of contact on the opening lap with Dan Lloyd, and Andreas Beckman was involved as well. And ever since then, the car has been running more or less on its own actually in third place. This is by far and away going to be Lewis's best finish of the year. It will be his first podium result. His previous best finish was 8th, so this is a real standout performance for the youngster, the local youngster as well. This is very much his local circuit, as we heard him saying earlier on, and the Essex and Kent Motorsport squad will be absolutely made up with this. They've been a little frustrated with the performance of this car. Of course, there have been a few BOP changes, balance performance changes since the last round, and they felt it had hurt the Hyundai a little bit unfairly, but third place will not be a bad afternoon's work for Lewis, and he'll be looking to try and maybe go 1 or 2 better in race 2. He's definitely got the speed. He's always had the speed. It's just lack of experience. But what do you expect for a 19-year-old? You know, he hasn't been racing for all that long. He's been through some of the junior tip-top formulae, but this is a whole other level for Lewis. He's doing a fantastic job. West Coast Racing look remarkably nervous, don't they, down in the pit lane as they watch their man Dan Lloyd continue to circulate now. We'll probably have time for 2 more laps after this one. He's got a 3-second margin over Ollie Taylor in second place, and I do believe he's just been managing the gap. You can see the car visually is not as quick as it was before through the right-hander at Surtees. He's really trying to drive tentatively on those tyres. Ollie Taylor looks like he's driving a bit more aggressively. He was a bit quicker than Lloyd on the previous lap, but he won't want to throw away a perfectly good second place, especially when he's got another 3 seconds nearly in hand over Lewis Kent behind him. A 51.3 for Dan Lloyd, a 51.2 for Ollie Taylor, so again quicker, but only fractionally. Lewis Kent still third, Josh Price fourth, Andreas Beckman, Jessica Beckman, I've done it again, I do apologise, Jessica, 5th place for her. 6th place is now Stuart Lyons, he's been reinstated into 6th. 7th place is Andreas Beckman, and 8th for Finley Crocker. Carl Swift 9th, and Howard Fuller 10th, but not really making that much progress onto the back of Carl Swift's Cupra. So Dan Lloyd looking for the 5th victory from 5 races in 2018. This is dominance personified, isn't it, in motor racing terms. We do not see this very often, but it shows what sort of a class act Dan Lloyd is, what a class act West Coast Racing are. They've really got their hands, got their heads, around this VW Golf TCR car, and he is now just 1 lap away from win number 5 in 2018. Really tentative as he turns through Paddock Hill Bend. He was 3/10 slower than Ollie Taylor on the previous lap. Ollie will keep pushing, why not? You never know, if Dan runs into some significant tyre issues on the last lap, he could still pick something up. But also, of course, he's got Lewis Kent now only 2 seconds behind him. Lewis Kent, actually, remarkably, is the only one in the top 3 running in the 50-second bracket still. He's still running within 1 second of his previous best lap. And that's really interesting, because you look at the time drop off for the rest of the cars towards the front of the field, and Lewis Kent there in the Hyundai is still going as quickly as ever, so that bodes well. Clearly he's figured out how to look after his tyres a little bit better now. He will come home, it looks like, in 3rd place in this race, but the race victory is going to go to Dan Lloyd for the 5th time in 2018. Dan Lloyd wins in TCR UK, and he will be very happy with that. Ollie Taylor will, if anything, be even happier with 2nd place in the debut, for him at least, of the FK7 Civic, with Lewis Kent coming home in 3rd. Now 4th on the timing screen, we've got Jessica Beckman, because Josh Price has slowed. Josh Price has slowed on the last lap. Now, is that damage? Is it a puncture? Trying to have a look at maybe the front left corner. No, the tyres are up. Tyres are up. That's strange, isn't it? Josh Price, for whatever reason, drops down to 9th place on the last lap. So Jessica Beckman gets 4th place, which is her best finish of the year now by 2 positions. And Stuart Lyons, likewise in 5th, gets his best finish of the year. So lots of feel-good stories down the field. But what on earth happened to Josh Price? We'll have to try and find out between races for you. Dan Lloyd, though, manages to bring it home. He backed the pace right off towards the end, but he is victorious here at Brands Hatch. A cracking race that was, though, and he really had to work for that one, arguably harder than he's had to work for any other win this year, even the reverse grid races, because he really had some stiff competition from Ollie Taylor in that one. There is confirmation of the result then. 1.8 seconds the eventual winning margin after Dan just coasted at home. Taylor 2nd, Lewis Kent in 3rd, a 1st podium ever in TCR racing for Lewis in the Hyundai i30. Jessica Beckman, best finish for her in 4th, and Stuart Lyons, best finish for him in 5th. Andreas Beckman is 6th, Finley Crocker is 7th, Carl Swift comes home in 8th position. That is also his best finish of the year so far. Josh Price, though, a mystery drama on the last lap, drops him down from 4th to 9th, whilst Howard Fuller will be frustrated after what happened to him on the first lap. He manages 10th. Darryl Wilson is 11th, and Alex Morgan, I don't think was running at the end. No, he came back into the pit lane again. Hopefully they'll get that car fixed and a little bit more competitive for race 2. So down into the pit lane they come, and Dan Lloyd, well, he'll have some interesting stories to tell. The car will not be as pristine as it usually is, I don't think, after all of the contact that he had on the opening lap. In comes Ollie Taylor, and look at how happy the Essex and Kent motorsport squad are with Lewis Kent's first ever podium. That will be some real vindication for Lewis, who we've said all along has the speed, but maybe had a little bit of bad luck, maybe lacks a bit of that experience in wheel-to-wheel combat, but a podium finish for him is fantastic stuff. Dan Lloyd, though, a win once more, and he is very, very happy with that. Handshakes all round with friends, family, and the West Coast Racing team. And he is now getting very, very familiar with the top step of the podium, but he won't be complaining. He'll be quite happy to keep on winning races all season long, if at all possible. It's not going to be easy to do, though. I think we've really seen in this race that not only is the competition stiffer now than it ever has been, but I think the competition are more determined than ever to do something about him, basically. They don't want him to win every race, and they're starting to get close enough to him, performance-wise, that maybe they might be able to stop him. Look at that, Lewis Kent. Well, do you know what? I don't think there's a dry eye in the house at the Essex and Kent Motorsport garage. Lewis hugs with his grandfather, David Creel, who wanders off in quiet contemplation, and they will be ecstatic with 3rd place. Equally happy, though, with his 5th win of the season will be Dan Lloyd. He's with Brim.
Thanks very much, Andy. Dan, what have people got to do to stop you?
I don't know, cock up the start maybe. Yeah, it was angry with myself at the start, but I got caught out, I bogged, and Ollie got me fair play. Took quite a big hit up at Druids, and it was so close to going round. Really happy I held it. it was just about settling down and watching Ollie, watch where he was quick and where he wasn't, and picked my spot about 2 or 3 laps before, and I knew what I was going to do, and just made sure it stuck.
So you made sure you got close enough, you stayed there, and then you picked that moment and off you went.
Yeah, exactly. Ollie was weak into the last corner, under braking, so I actually left a bit of a gap, got a bit of momentum through the corner, and then got him into it, so yeah, great.
Once you get the inside there, it's pretty much yours, isn't it? Now, how hard was it out there? Because we said before, 30-minute race in these conditions, you look like you've lost a lot of fluid, should we say?
Yeah, it was really tough. I mean, a lot of pickup on the track as well, so worst thing was thinking about a puncture. There was so much pickup, the sound was awful, so I mean, means a lot this win. We've got a lot going on in the background to help me keep going for the rest of the year. Some new sponsors maybe coming on, so yeah, it means a lot.
You could do it all again in just a couple of hours' time, but from a very, very different position.
Yeah, from 10, so need to get stuck in.
Well done there, Dan. Let's grab Ollie. Now, that was let's have a handshake between these two. Ollie, that was pretty remarkable. That's the first time we've seen somebody get a jump on Dan.
Yeah, I thought I kind of had him there. Here at Brands, should have been right for defend. I thought he was on my left-hand side going into clearways. I thought I'll open it up a little bit, get a bit of a run onto the start line, so he didn't have an attack into paddock, and he was already on the left. He was already on my right-hand side. And what's that? Too late. Couldn't shut.
Not much you can do at that point, though, is there?
No.
Once he's got the inside line.
Yeah, once the horse is bolted. So yeah, no. So just tried to stay on his bumper really for as long as I could, but it's quite intense being only a few inches from someone around here, and just made a few little mistakes. He just opened the door slightly, and yeah, so he took the win. Yeah,
that equals your best that you got at Knock Hill there, and the second race at Knock Hill, the DNF. So it's nice to get back out on track and get another podium.
Yep, good to be back on the podium. Definitely points needed. Good for Lewis as well to get third, so it's also good for Lewis, but also good for our championship as well, taking points away from some other people. So yeah, hopefully get the same start again in race 2 and see what happens.
And what is the car like? I know you've made the change, so what's the car like?
Yeah, I love it. It's just much more comfortable place to be. I'm more confident in it, so lets me go push harder. So yeah, it's great. Team Pyro done a great job.
Great stuff. Go and get your trophy. Well done. Thanks, Ollie. Lewis. Well done. That is a vast improvement from your 11th DNF and an 8th.
Yeah, big improvements. I can't thank the guys at Essex and Kent enough. They've stripped the car down. They've built it back together. And yeah, it's.
Well, apologies, we've lost signal down in the pit lane there with Bryn and Lewis Kent. We'll try very much to get back in touch with him if we can, but in the meantime we will have a look at the highlights of a dramatic opening race of the day. Wow. Bend and trying desperately to hang on. There was drama behind those. Andreas Beckman and Lewis Kent came together down at Graham Hill Bend, possibly damaging Beckman's car. This was the save of the day for the Swedish driver, though, after contact with Josh Price nearly took him and half the field out of the race. Cracking save from him, but Howard Fuller sadly got tangled up in the aftermath and was spun off onto the grass. For him, it would be a lowly 10th place finish. Dan Lloyd eventually prized the door open to find a way back ahead of Ollie Taylor, but it was a tough job then to try and pull away. Alex Morgan had mechanical dramas, whilst Howard Fuller had track limits dramas, running wide up towards clearways. A titanic scrap between Stuart Lyons, Finlay Crocker and Andreas Beckman ensued through the midfield, with Stuart and Finlay at one point both getting through in one fell swoop. West Coast Racing were nervously watching on, hoping that their drivers could keep it clean to the rest of the race, and Finlay Crocker allowed Andreas Beckman through with that moment. Dan Lloyd, though, took his 5th win from 5 races to extend his championship lead, whilst Ollie Taylor's 2nd place moves him back into 2nd place. Well, the drivers then are heading out onto the podium, and Scott Woodward there from the BRSCC ready to do the honours. Gemma Ratzing as well from TCR UK, I can see in the background, ready to usher the drivers out onto the podium, and there will be some very, very lively celebrations, I would imagine, down below, particularly from Ollie Taylor's Pyro Motorsport squad and the Essex and Kent Motorsport squad of Lewis Kent. Dan Lloyd is well used to winning and well used to these good results. but for the other two on the podium, this was far from a foregone conclusion that they'd be up there. It's really nice to see their performance improving as the year goes on. There is Lewis Kent. He really is a youngster, isn't he? But you would not believe it when you see the consistency of his pace in that race, and that's what really bodes well for race 2 later on. Out comes Ollie Taylor. Second place finish for him. If anything, gets an even bigger cheer from the crowd down below. But finally, Dan Lloyd with his 5th winner's trophy of the season. A phenomenal drive from Dan. He really had to work for it, but it was well worth the effort. He extends his championship lead now. Can he be caught? Well, we'll find out a little bit later on. Remember, we have race 2 coming up later on this afternoon. That will be a reversed grid. Dan will have to come from 10th on the grid, and if the first few laps of this first race of the day are anything to go by, he is not going to have it easy at all. So 3 very happy drivers up on the podium. We'll see them all again in race 2 later on. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you back this afternoon. Everybody, round number 9 of the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship is about to get underway, and this is always a highlight of the weekend because it's the reversed grid race. We've had the top, I think I'm right in saying, 2, 4, 6, 8 cars reversed from the results from race 2, meaning that Carl Garnett and Johnny Greensmith line up on the front row together ahead of Steve Roberts and Simon Baldwin, Aidan Hills and Jack Harding, then James Blake Baldwin and Luke Herbert ahead of Sam Tatler and Gary Townsend rounding out the top 10. Both races thus far this weekend won by Luke Herbert, meaning that he is now joint championship leader with James Blake Baldwin, with whom he shares the 4th row of the grid. So that is going to be really interesting to watch. That's the second of the blue and orange striped cars, James Blake Baldwin, and the all blue number 1 of Luke Herbert. They're fighting each other for the championship lead, and they're both going to try and work their way through to the front of the field. Revs starting to rise then. 20 minutes of racing gets underway now. Who makes the start from the front row of the grid? It's fairly evenly matched, actually. And Carl Garnett might just be able to hang on to the lead up towards Paddock Hill Bend. Let's see. Wheel to wheel throughout the field as Luke Herbert comes charging around the outside of everybody. He's already ahead of Blake Baldwin and he's ahead of Jack Harding. And now he's alongside his teammate Aidan Hills as well. Storming start from Luke Herbert as they make their way in towards Druids. It's Greensmith that leads the way. And Herbert's around the outside. 3 wide for second place. Jack Harding's out wide further back, but Herbert had to back out of that one for fear of being elbowed out onto the grass. He dives back on the inside though. Simon Baldwin, who slams the door in his face. He was having absolutely none of that. Out onto the grass goes Aidan Hills there. Steve Roberts was a bit wide as well, but the big loser there, Jack Harding, 3rd place in the championship, only 2 points off the championship lead, but he's been hung out to dry on the opening lap. Up towards Clearways we go then for the first time. It's Greensmith that leads the way. Garnett runs a bit wide there in 2nd place, and so Simon Baldwin, gets up the inside of him briefly. Can't quite make the move stick though, so Garnett will be 2nd. It will be Simon Baldwin 3rd. Luke Herbert remarkably from 8th up to 4th already, ahead of Blake Baldwin in 5th. 6th is Roberts, 7th is Hills, and 8th is Tatler. 9th place then for Jack Harding, so a really disappointing start for him. And 10th there, the orange car, is Jack Sycamore, just ahead of Colin Bysout, trying to recover from that spin that he had on the opening lap in race 1. Up towards Druids, more jostling for position here, and Luke Herbert is doing a fantastic job here. But remember back to Knock Hill last time, we had a very similar situation where Luke Herbert won the first 2 races, but then had to start back in the pack, of course, for race 3. Carved his way through to 2nd place really quickly, and then could not get the race lead away. And the man who he was trying to take the race lead from was Johnny Greensmith, our current race leader. So we're going to have almost an exact repeat, potentially at least, of what happened last time out at Knock Hill. There are still other places to be settled first, though, as Simon Baldwin is back up the inside of Carl Garnett for 2nd position here, wheel to wheel across the start-finish line. And Luke Herbert is going to do his best to get a double slipstream here and try and maybe attack the pair of them if they get a bit close for comfort. Up towards Paddock they go, hard on the brake brakes at the top of the hill, and Herbert looks to the inside line. No, that was a big risk to take. Garnett is very late on the brakes, so he's too late on the brakes. Runs out wide onto the dirty side of the road, Baldwin's back up the inside, and Herbert tries to make it 3 wide again. That's never going to work. He had to back out of it again, and all of a sudden he's got his big championship rival, James Blake Baldwin, alongside him. James runs a bit wide on the marbles. This could all end in tears for one or more of our championship contenders. Herbert's got past Garnett. He's now trying to go around the outside of Simon Baldwin. Can't do it. James Blake Baldwin gets past Carl Garnett as well. So Carl's race is starting to unravel a little bit. Down towards Surtees they go. Aidan Hill's buying into all of this as well at the inside of Garnett and Surtees. Garnett closed the door though, and so Aidan Hill's had to back out. Then it's Roberts, then it's Jack Harding, and as Roberts runs a bit wide, Harding will look to try and get up the inside of him if at all possible. Out onto the pit straight. Nope, nothing doing. In fact, Roberts gets good momentum out of the corner and will try and draw back alongside Aidan Hills. So Greensmith leads, Simon Baldwin second, but here comes Luke Herbert in third place, and he's dancing all over the boot lid of the number 16 car, the Blink Motorsport car of Simon Baldwin. He's in a Blink Motorsport and indeed a Baldwin sandwich, because he's got Simon in front of him and James Blake Baldwin behind him in fourth. Simon Baldwin having a really good run here though, on for one of his best results of the season so far. Always been a quick driver, but this year certainly an upturn in pace over the course of the winter break, and that's been great to see. We always want more drivers to be showing their face at the front of the field, and this reverse grid race of course gives them a golden opportunity to gain some track position right off the bat ahead of some of the usual suspects, and then try and get their elbows out to keep them behind. Into the right-hander clearways they go. Oh, Garnett wide again. Aidan Hills is back alongside him. Aidan Hills, every time you look at Aidan Hills, he's side by side with somebody. It's very rare for Aidan to have a lonely, quiet, single file race, and that's what makes him so exciting to watch. The gap though, I'd say, is coming down. It was a second, it's now 4/10, so Simon Baldwin 6/10 quicker than the race leader that time around. Hills does take 5th place away from Garnett, although Garnett now comes back at him on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. I think Aidan will get across to defend. No, yes he does. There's trim hanging off the back of Aidan Hill's car, but you won't worry about that too much. He's just set the fastest lap of the race, in fact, as Aidan Hills, a 56.262. So not quite as quick as we've seen in the earlier races, but of course he's mired back in traffic at the moment in the number 8 car. Back out through Graham Hill we go, down the Cooper Straight again, and it's all bunching up. Look at this, 4th lead, Greensmith, Simon Baldwin, Luke Herbert, James Blake Baldwin, the top 4, and the more that Greensmith has to start defending, the longer this line of cars could become. Through the right-hander clearways they go. We're already nearly 5 minutes through this race. Plenty of time left though in this 20-minute encounter for the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Cup. Further back, that's Christian White in the number 28 car up the inside of Will Stevenson, who brought about an early end to race number 2 of the weekend earlier on this morning when he spun at Paddock Hill Bend, into the gravel trap. That's the corner they're heading towards now. It's also the corner where Christian White deposited himself into retirement early on in race 1 of the weekend yesterday. Changing here, look at James Blake Baldwin trying to go around the outside of Herbert. This might just work. They're 3 abreast again on the exit of the corner, and Herbert goes one side of Simon Baldwin and James Blake Baldwin goes the other side. I think that Herbert will get 2nd place out of all of this, just about, with James Blake Baldwin 3rd, and Simon Baldwin has been mugged because not only has he lost 2 places, but he's lost all of his momentum as well, and so Aidan Hills makes it 3 places lost for Simon Baldwin in the space of 2 corners. He was trying his best to defend there, but by going into Druids on a tight line, he lost all of his speed, and they just swamped him left, right and centre. So Herbert is now 2nd and on the tail of Greensmith. Can he become the first man this season to win all 3 races in the same weekend? He has done it before, but no one's done it yet in 2018. He's right with Greensmith as they go over the big hump in the road under braking in towards Paddock Hill Bend. Just avoids the curve on the apex there, but Greensmith just hasn't quite had the pace this weekend that he's shown on previous weekends, and so whether or not he can hold off this chasing pack for the remaining 14 minutes, we'll have to wait and see. Back down the hill they go. Greensmith, Herbert, Blake Baldwin and Aidan Hills now your top 4, and Jack Harding there trying to get 5th place away from Simon Baldwin. Had a big look up the inside into Graham Hill Bend, but was always a bit too far back, you feel, there to make that one stick. But again, for Jack, he arrived here championship leader. He's now 3rd in the championship and won't be happy with it, but James Blake Baldwin is not happy with running 3rd in the race. He goes up the inside of Luke Herbert and with a real peach of a move, moves himself up into P2. So brilliant stuff there from Blake Baldwin. Looks like Herbert's going to try and come back at him down the pit straight, but Blake Baldwin has the toe from the car in front. Doesn't seem to be hurting Herbert though. He's actually pulling himself back alongside. Don't touch here. That was very close indeed. Can Aidan Hills buy into all of this as well and maybe start challenging his teammate Herbert? The answer is no. but Blake Baldwin does go through into second place. So James Blake Baldwin second, Herbert third, Hills fourth, then Simon Baldwin and Jack Harding still fifth and sixth. So back through the right-hander at Druids they go, down in towards Graham Hill Bend, and Aidan Hills starting now to look quite racy here, and he has dropped down, but he's fifth place in the championship, but he's now dropped a fairly substantial, he's 36 points off the championship lead now, is Aidan. Now, of course, we've got drop scores to be taken into account as well. Blake Baldwin, oh, contact between Herbert and Blake Baldwin. What happened there? Has that damaged either car? They seem to have got away with it, but Aidan Hills might just get past the pair of them. Blake Baldwin's going backwards, and Aidan Hills, right place, right time, might be about to go from fourth to second. I've no idea what triggered all of that. There was contact between the two drivers, though, who are tied for the championship lead coming into this race, Luke Herbert and James Blake Baldwin, and it's Blake Baldwin who is the big loser, because look at the places he's lost. Simon Baldwin's gone through, and now Jack Harding is alongside him as well as they go onto the brakes in towards Druids. Simon Baldwin's into the back of Luke Herbert, and again through the right-hander. Luke won't be best pleased with that. James Blake Baldwin goes right back round the outside, and for a brief moment was almost level with his championship rival again there. Well, this is typical Mazda MX-5 racing, isn't it? And it's all playing beautifully into the hands of Johnny Greensmith, who has now escaped up the road to the tune of nearly 1 second. Down in towards 30, Jack Harding still can't get past Simon Baldwin, much to his frustration. Is there a gap up the inside, maybe into clearways? He thinks there is. Yes, there is. Brilliant. Oh, elbows Simon Baldwin out of the way. This is more like it. It started to get very physical in race number 3 of the weekend here at Brands Hatch. It is a reverse grid race, though, so what more do you expect? Garnett goes through as well, and Simon Baldwin's race starts to unravel. Blake Baldwin back up the inside of Luke Herbert now. This is for third position as they go towards Paddock Hill Bend, and this time he gets it done cleanly. So nice stuff there from Blake Baldwin. Back onto the podium. What can he do about Aidan Hills up the road, though? Come on, what can he do about Luke Herbert? He's trying to come straight back at him as they go through the dip of Paddock Hill Bend. Sensational racing for the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup, as ever it is. The first 2 races, they haven't been able to shake Luke Herbert out of the race lead, but once they got track position on him here from the start of race number 3, they've done everything they can to keep him back in the pack. And it looks as though they are not afraid to trade a bit of paint with him to make sure that happens. Back down the Cooper straight, Herbert weaving this way and that. Harding, of course, is now right with them, having finally found a way past Simon Baldwin. So these are the top 3 drivers in the championship once again. They are inseparable throughout 2018. We're in for a cracking season as we build up through the middle portion of the year. It does look as though these 3 are the 3 title favourites, and it could be a really close run thing. Across the start-finish line they go. Aidan Hills was 1.2 seconds behind Johnny Greensmith. He is now 0.9, so 3 tenths quicker than the race leader that time around was Aidan Hills. Blake Baldwin is a further second back in third, ahead of Herbert 4th, Harding 5th, Garnett 6th, Simon Baldwin 7th, Colin Bysouth 8th, Steve Roberts 9th, and Sam Tatler in 10th. And they all flash through quicker than you can say them, because this train of cars, being led by James Blake Baldwin in 3rd place, goes all the way back to Jack Sycamore in 11th place. They are absolutely as one. Carl Garnett and Simon Baldwin side by side. Now this is Garnett trying to gain the position, but he's on the wrong side of the road into Graham Hill Bend. Tries to get the switch back instead on the exit corner, which he can't. Simon very casually reaches out and just repositions his wing mirror, having had that folded inwards at some point earlier on in the race. It's amazing the presence of mind that racing drivers have when they're in the thick of a 10 or 11 car battle as intense as this, and they still have the presence of mind to just reach out of the cockpit and very calmly make the adjustment they need to, and then just carry on racing like nothing happened. Steve Roberts back up the inside now of Carl Garnett as they come out onto the pit straight, but the lead gap is nothing now. Well, it's half a second, but that means that Aidan Hills is right within striking range. We'll check in on that in a moment. For now, Steve Roberts is trying to go up the inside of Garnett, which he will. Colin Bysouth now tries to join in as well. Now remember, these 2 came together at Knockhill, did Garnett and Bysouth, and both ended up out of the race, and they're now right back together again, and Sam Tatler's in there as well. More dust goes flying. Oh, Jack Sycamore says, don't forget about me, I want to join in as well. Gains 2 places out of all of that. Tatler's on the grass, rejoins right in front of Bysouth, who has to slam on the anchors to avoid hitting him. Well, this is Mazda MX-5 racing at its finest, isn't it? It's so close. It's usually pretty clean, but when you've got such a big group of drivers who are all capable of lapping near identical lap times, the racing is always going to get fraught, and it is the last race of the day, and they've got about 5 weeks to get the cars repaired before the next rounds at Castle Combe. Across the start-finish line come the leading 2 cars. Greensmith leads the way by now less than the car length over Aidan Hills, though. We've still got 8.5 minutes to go, but for the first time in quite some time, Johnny Greensmith is having to defend the race lead, looking for his 2nd win of the season. Aidan Hills is looking for his 1st ever win in the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup, though. What would you do to win your 1st ever race in a championship that you've come so close to winning rounds of in the past and not quite been able to get yourself onto the top step of the podium? Well, we're about to find out what Aidan Hills would do. I suggest he's not afraid to throw one up the inside here and make a late lunge to take the race lead away. In the toe down the Cooper Straight, can't really overtake into Surtees, but the next corner up at Clearways is definitely an overtaking opportunity. He's probably too far back on this occasion though, so he takes the wide line in. Has he had his best opportunity to do this though? Because in the lap or so that he's been following Greensmith closely, he's been held up, and now the three behind have closed back in. So Blake Baldwin, Luke Herbert and Jack Harding, who are never far away from the action, are all right back together again, meaning this is a 5-car lead train separated by 1 second, and up the inside goes Blake Baldwin for second place. Into Paddock Hill Bend, he leans on Aidan Hills, the floppy markers go flying again, and Blake Baldwin has got the inside line towards Druids. He's getting a helpful shove from Aidan Hills' teammate Luke Herbert as they go up the hill, but Blake Baldwin goes through, so Blake Baldwin takes second, Aidan Hills down to third, Jack Harding tries to go around the outside of Luke Herbert at Druids to get the inside line down towards Graham Hill Bend. Late on the brakes, very late on the brakes, he's done it. Herbert's back another position now, and he's back behind all of his big championship rivals. Simon Baldwin joins in the fun as well now, drives himself alongside Luke Herbert in towards the left-hander at Surtees, can't do it. This was not in the script for the reigning champion though. Car number 1 should be in position number 1 as far as he's concerned, and now he's been barged right down the order. Well, I say right down the order, he's 5th place, but by Luke Herbert's very high standards, that will not be good enough. Now it's James Blake Baldwin starting to challenge the race leader. We've got 6.5 minutes still to go. Can Johnny Greensmith weather the storm for the remaining third of the race? No, he can't. James Blake Baldwin in the first opportunity up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend and takes the race lead away. He's all out of shape on the exit of the corner, but he's gone through. There's a car in the gravel further back that I think might have been Carl Garnett, but we have our first lead change of the race, and it is James Blake Baldwin who really needs this race victory to retake that championship lead, and he's got the lead away from Greensmith. Greensmith's back second, Hills is third, Harding there in 4th, and 5th position for Luke Herbert. What can he do? Well, with Hills and Harding starting to trade paint in front of him, Herbert sees a chance to get up the inside into Surtees. That's always fraught with danger though, and so Jack Harding chops his nose off aggressively and holds on to 4th place for the time being. Can Greensmith come back at Blake Baldwin now becomes the next question, because it's one thing passing, it's another thing staying in front. This was the move. Sells in the dummy look, goes to the outside, and then the very last second, well, that was absolute brilliant judgment there from Blake Baldwin. He passed within inches of the rear bumper of the race leader's car, but it was a squeaky clean move, and he moves his way into the race lead. Herbert around the outside of Jack Harding now through Paddock. Oh dear, that's risky for Luke Herbert. He doesn't really want to be doing this. Simon Baldwin and Steve Roberts aren't that far behind as they hit the brakes in towards Druids. I don't think he's going to go right around the outside of Harding. No, he can't. Gets elbowed out wide, so now Simon Baldwin does manage to get alongside him, but only temporarily, as they almost get a bit tangled together coming down the hill. Oh, Roberts on the inside of Baldwin into the side of him. Baldwin with a half spin, they get tangled together. Oh dear, well, that may well have damaged both cars. It certainly dropped them down the order, and Steve Roberts wasn't best pleased with that. They're both now plummeted outside the top 10, and it looks as though maybe Roberts' car has come off worse for wear there. Simon Baldwin is continuing. The car is far from in showroom condition, but it seems to be functioning okay. The first hit wasn't that bad there as he got up the inside, but then the cars just get tangled together with Baldwin sideways. Both drivers making eye contact as they're in the middle of having an accident, and then they both carry on their way. Steve Roberts gesticulating as he's bouncing his way across the grass. Has he headed into the pit lane? No, Roberts has continued in 10th place. Side by side again now between Harding and Luke Herbert for 4th position. Herbert locking up on the outside line. Now, you can see there the marbles, the dust and the dirt and the bits of the little chunks of rubber that have been discarded off the racing line over the course of the weekend that he was running over there. Well, Jack Harding, this is a very, very defensive race that he's having to drive now. Herbert is visibly quicker, but can he find a way through? He's side by side again down towards Surtees. He's on the outside line, gets his nose in front, but Harding has the preferred line into the corner. This is brave stuff from Luke Herbert, and he does it round the outside at Surtees at nearly 100 miles an hour through that corner, and he takes 4th place away. Phenomenal stuff from Luke Herbert. Now, as the reigning champion and someone who, you know, really should be thinking about consistency and just bagging the points, he doesn't need to be taking these sort of risks, but he can see the leaders escaping up the road, and with 3 3/4 minutes to go, he still thinks he can get back on the podium. In towards Paddock Hill Bend they go. He is 2.8 seconds behind the podium runners, but of course they're all running within a second of each other, so they could start holding each other up if they start dicing. Back in towards Druids again. Harding hasn't given up hopes of getting back ahead of Herbert here though. A bit of a tap in the tail there. Sam Tatler is off in the gravel trap. That's up at Clearways by the looks of it. Now, he's nearly made the tyre wall. I don't think he's quite made the tyre wall. Now, will that be far enough off the circuit that we don't need to have either a safety car or an early checkered flag as we had in race 2? certainly the safety car would be the last thing that James Blake Baldwin wants to see, because he's finally started to build up a bit of a margin over Johnny Greensmith. 0.6 of a second is his lead. Greensmith second, Hills third. There is the fight for fourth between Herbert, Harding and Jack Sycamore. Jack Sycamore, who started all the way down in 12th on the grid, has picked his way through the carnage into 6th position. Phenomenal drive from Jack for what I'm fairly sure will become his best finish of the season so far. Simon Baldwin is 7th, Carl Garnett is 8th, Steve Roberts is now 9th, and Will Stevenson from the back of the grid is into 10th position. Sideways there through Paddock Hill Bend. The track temperature now the hottest it's been all day, and so they'll really be struggling. The hotter it gets, the greasier it feels and the less grip there is on the circuit. So the drivers will be, well, we're seeing them quite clearly sideways all the way around the circuit, really, particularly through Paddock. Checking with some of the battles further back, that's Tom Parker, the black number 6 car, ahead of Alex Miller in the white number 7, and Alex King in the number 35 car, who was tangled up in a first lap shunt in race 1 yesterday with damaged race car. He managed to limp home to the finish, but obviously didn't get a particularly impressive result. Down into 30s they will go, and this just goes to show that the battling is equally as intense wherever you look in the field. It's not just the leaders that are dicing in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 car packs. Whoops, oh, that'll go down well. Contact under the yellow flags between the number 7 machine of Alex Miller and the 35 of Alex King. The yellow flag's out there as a result of the car that we saw stranded, Sam Tatler's car, and I think possibly Miller slowed up and King didn't slow up quite as much, and they just sort of met in the middle and King went around. There may be a discussion about that, I think, post-race. We'll wait and see. But good save on the grass there for Alex Miller, but loses position. So we are about to go on to the probably penultimate. It's going to be tight, this. They're lapping in the 56-second bracket. No, I think this will be the final lap they're about to go on to. It's going to be a close one again, actually, isn't it? Let's see. 1 minute left on the clock now. They might just squeeze another. Now, I think the last lap board just got out in time there for James Blake Baldwin, who has a 1.4 second lead. You'd be forgiven if you've just checked into this race for thinking this had been a fairly dull and processional affair. It's been anything but. And if you've missed the first 19 minutes of this race, then you've missed one of the best races of the season so far in Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. Blake Baldwin leads by 1.4 seconds over Greensmith second and Aidan Hills third. We had confirmation there that we have had the last lap board, and so James Blake Baldwin now just needs to bring it home. The car is a bit battered and bruised, but that's what you need to do sometimes, to work your way to the front of the field, particularly in a reverse grid race. And of course, James Blake Baldwin did start 7th, only 1 place ahead of Luke Herbert. But this result will give him the championship lead back, and he will be very happy with that indeed. Out through clearways they go. The Blink Motorsport car heads onto the pit straight and heads towards win number 2 of the season for James Blake Baldwin. He won back at Silverstone, and now he wins at Brands Hatch and retakes the championship lead. A fantastic drive from James Blake Baldwin. Johnny Greensmith second, Aidan Hills third, and Luke Herbert remarkably had caught his teammate by the end of the final lap, but just ran out of time to find a way through. So he is 4th, Jack Harding 5th, and the rest of them stream in behind. So James Blake Baldwin with the race victory. Jack Harding set the fastest lap but only finished in 5th. So by my reckoning, Blake Baldwin will retake the championship lead. Herbert will be 2nd and Harding will be 3rd, whilst Johnny Greensmith will close the gap on them slightly with his 2nd place finish in 4th place in the championship. Fantastic racing though, as ever, we've been treated to by the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. They will be on the TCR UK bill at every round this year, so they'll be back out in about 5 or 6 weeks' time at Castle Combe on the 14th and 15th of July. Live stream, of course, of the 2nd and 3rd races of the weekend for this championship, and it's another championship that is starting to get some real exposure from being on this package, and we get to show the rest of the world just how good British motorsport is. Championships that maybe you're not all that familiar with, racing, you'll remember for a long time. Blake Baldwin takes the victory. Greensmith in 2nd, Aidan Hills 3rd, Luke Herbert 4th and Jack Harding 5th. Simon Baldwin 6th ahead of Jack Sycamore in 7th. Carl Garnett 8th. Steve Roberts will be disappointed with 9th, that's for sure, after that contact with Simon Baldwin. With Will Stevenson very happy, conversely, with 10th position. Outside the top 10 then, it was an 11th place finish for Alec Livesley. 12th place was Gary Townsend, and he was stuck into a few of the battles earlier on, wasn't he? Christian White will be happy with his best finish of the weekend in 13th. Bradley Kent, Lewis Kent's younger brother, gets another 14th place finish ahead of Tom Parker 15th, Alex King 16th, then Alex Miller, Nick Boone, James Kell, and championship sponsor George Grant gets to the end of this race in 20th. Then it's Xavier Brook, Jeff Gourier, John Stack, Duncan Harris, Nick Rutter, while Sam Tatler and Colin Bysouth were the only two non-finishers. Drivers down in the pit lane, hugs all round there between Johnny Greensmith and James Blake Baldwin. James, a real character, and he will be chatting with Bryn Lucas in just a moment or two. We've got Aidan Hills over there as well, lending his congratulations. I think they all enjoyed that race, and what we saw when we spoke to James Blake Baldwin and Luke Herbert earlier on is that yes, there'd been a bit of contact, and yes, it was a bit physical at times, but hey, that's racing, and that's why they race in this championship, because it is so close. They've still got great respect for each other, and the great thing is they can have a race like that and then still head down into the pit lane afterwards, laughing and joking with each other. Well, let's hand over to Bryn Lucas down in the pit lane with our podium finishers.
There, thanks very much there, Andy. James, that was a fight. 6 minutes to the end it took you before you managed to pass Greensmith there.
Yeah, that was rather hard work. Yeah, that was a lot of cars all over the place. I managed to just sort of take the opportunity where I could, really, and just pulled a back gap from Johnny towards the end.
There was about a 9 or a 10 car train at one point, all covered by around about half a second to a second. It was so tight.
Yeah, this Mazda racing is pretty tight this year, as it always is. But yeah, we've come off with a win on the third race.
Which you actually kind of need when you look at the championship positions after this weekend. You know, it's been kind of to and fro, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that, to be honest, leaves us. I think I'm trailing Luke, to be honest. But, you know, the fact that we've got a win at Brands is really, really good. You know, credit to the team, Blink Motorsport. They've done an amazing job on the car, so I can't really thank them enough. They've given me an absolute weapon, and it's paid off on the last race.
Well done, race winner.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bryn. Yes, on drop scores, it may be a little bit different, but certainly on the scratch points, that will be him back in front in the points. Well, I think Johnny Greensmith is with Bryn now. Let's have a chat with our runner-up.
Well, you nearly got it. 6 more minutes is all you needed.
Yeah, 6 more minutes, and I got caught napping.
6 more minutes. It's a lot of laps though out there at Brands Hatch.
It is, and especially in this weather, it's absolutely sweltering out there. So yeah, second place, I'm happy enough. I'd have been better if it were P1 like so, but now fair game, finished off a good weekend.
In temperatures like this, okay, you got open top cars, but you do get to feel the heat. It stays inside the cockpit, it doesn't escape, does it?
No, it doesn't escape, and especially down the tunnel, your foot's starting to burn and everything else like so. Yeah, it gets quite hot down there.
At the start of this race, would you have taken second?
Yeah, to be honest with you, we've been struggling all weekend, to be honest with you, with pace. So for second, yeah, I'll go home happy with that, definitely.
Well done. Well, you can go home a happy man now.
Yes, definitely. Cheers.
Well done there. Well done to Johnny Greensmith. Let's go over here now to our third place man, to Aiden. Now, Aiden, we were looking all the way through this. It was battles everywhere we looked on track. You probably weren't aware of that, apart from what was around you at any given time.
Well, I mean, that's what you get from reverse grid racing and Mazda racing. I came into the weekend thinking I'd be well happy with 3 top 5s, and then I had 2 4ths in the first 2 races, and I thought, I really want to be on the podium now. And after the first 2 laps, I was back to 7th, and I thought, I've blown it. But I just picked them off one by one. The car was coming to me, and after 10 minutes, I was in second, and I was having flashbacks when I was behind Johnny at Knock Hill and thinking, I don't know if I try too hard and drop back, but to be honest, P3, I'm well over the moon with it.
Yeah, well, Luke Herbert was there. You also had Simon Baldwin. Everybody was having a go, weren't they?
All the front runners, you know, from this year, all of us managed to get to the front pretty quickly, and it was just a free-for-all, really. Anyone could have won that, and luckily, you know, James drove really well, and he done 2 perfect moves on me and Johnny, so he deserved it.
Well, a well-earned podium. Well done.
Thank you very much, mate. Cheers.
Well, thank you very much, Bryn, and 3 very, very happy Mazda MX-5 SuperCup drivers down in the pit lane, and it was a cracking race for the championship. It always is exciting, isn't it, in Mazda MX-5 SuperCup racing. First good races, never any different. So, highlights of the race, and it was a perfect start for Carl Garnett, pole position. Johnny Greensmith was always looking to try and capitalise from a front row starting position, which he did in the early stages. Luke Herbert made a brilliant start, going around the outside of several of his championship contenders. then things got a little rougher from that point on. Aidan Hills dropped back initially, but then started the fight back whilst there was blue cars aplenty with Herbert, Baldwin, Aidan Hills all getting together before contact was made between the top two in the championship. Luke Herbert and James Blake Baldwin, they both survived unscathed, but at that point it looked like Blake Baldwin's race was over. Contact between Sam Tatler and Colin Bysouth took Sam out onto the grass coming out of Druids. Whilst further back there was action aplenty with James Kell getting stuck in the midfield. Blake Baldwin made the first of his two perfect moves on Aidan Hills there, took out the floppy markers, took over second place, and then an absolutely squeaky clean move on Johnny Greensmith, sold him the dummy, dived to the inside and got the race lead away, and from there he was never headed. He pulled out into a very comfortable lead. Further back, Steve Robertson and Simon Baldwin came together. Steve wasn't best pleased with that, understandably, because he'd been on to for a good result until that contact dropped him down out of the top 10. There was also contact further back with Alex Miller getting spun around the front of Alex King's car up at Clearways. Christian White came through into a 13th place finish despite this half moment to have a Graham Hill bend, but it was James Blake Baldwin who came out victorious, and that did his championship challenge the world of good. Second place for Johnny Greensmith and Aidan Hills with his first podium of the weekend. Drivers up on the podium then, and James Blake Baldwin being interviewed by Dave Goddard, circuit commentator, and it was a phenomenal drive from him. The two moves, particularly the one he made on Johnny Greensmith, one of the best bits of racecraft we've seen all season long, and I can't wait to see what the next chapter of the MX-5 SuperCup story is. Castlecombe, next time out, will be where we see who comes out on top on the 14th and 15th of July, and maybe see who can start to make an edge in the championship standings. Formula Ford cars out on the circuit here for the final time this weekend at Brands Hatch, the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford 1600 Championship, their third race of the weekend. It's a reversed grid race, and the first two haven't been that bad anyway, so this one should be an absolute corker. The first two races both won by Niall Murray, but with the reverse grid, he starts 8th for this one. It's Neil McLennan who came from the back of the grid to finish 8th in race 1, and that was very lucky for him because it gives him pole for race 2, gives him pole for race 3 alongside Hugo Bentley Ellis on row 1. Jamie Thorburn and Michael Moyers next up on row 2 ahead of Matt Round-Garrido and Michael Eastwell. Joey Foster and Niall Murray top 2 in the first 2 races, 7th and 8th respectively in race number 3. Nico Gruber and Jonathan Brown round out the top 10 on the grid, and they are followed by Rory Smith and Roger Orgy ahead of Thomas Capetzone and James Clark, with Matt Rivette and Sebastian Jobe on the 8th row of the grid. Row 9 for Vincent Jay and John Svensson, whilst Jack Wolfenden and Seb Melrose one to watch for down in 20th on the grid. Then we have Daniel O'Byrne and David Maloney, Rich Morris and Henry Chart, and then a few of those who really ran into trouble in race 2. Josh Smith, damaged suspension. He'll be looking to try and make progress from 25th ahead of Carter Williams. Then it's Chris Middlehurst, Pascal Montbaron and Luke Cooper. Second place in the championship coming into this weekend, but 2 non-finishers, 29th on the grid. What can Cooper do from there? He needs to make progress. Sam Street rounds out the 30-car field, which is making its way onto the grid as we speak. Neil McLennan, the white car with blue nose on the left-hand side of the picture. On the right-hand side, also a white car with blue nose cone, was Hugo Bentley Ellis. He lost that nose cone, or it became loose in race number 2 earlier on. He'll be hoping to have a cleaner start to the race this time around. 15 minutes of action. Round number 9 of the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford 1600 Championship is just moments away. There we've got a glimpse of Luke Cooper in the number 6 car at the back of the grid, but the red lights go on. They go out now. We're away and racing for the final time this weekend, and it's Neil McLennan who makes a great start from pole position. Hugo Bentley Ellis tries to go with him and will slot through into 2nd place ahead of Thorburn 3rd, and it looks as though that is Michael Moyers in 4th place. Then Matt Round-Garrido 5th. Oh dear, Joey Foster and Niall Murray already banging wheels in 6th and 7th there, but they have gained a bit of ground there, 4 off the line, gaining a place apiece as they make their way up towards the top of the hill, in towards Druids Corner. So if you can pick out Luke Cooper in all of that mess towards the back, he was on the inside line, I think. And Niall Murray has been shuffled down the order, back behind Michael Eastwell and briefly back behind Nico Gruber. So Niall Murray, double race victor and fairly comfortable championship leader at this stage of the championship. Not with an ideal start. A good launch off the grid. Then the first few corners did not go to plan. Speaking of not going to plan, off on the grass there was Sebastian Jobe as they went down the Cooper straight, and then pangs wheels with another car as he rejoins the circuit. That was the number 24 machine by the looks of it, of Chris Middlehurst, who was a retirement from the previous race. The leaders come across the start-finish line. It's McLennan that leads the way. Hugo Bentley Ellis is second. Third is Thorburn. Fourth place is Moyes. Fifth is Round Greedo, but how much longer? Joey Foster looking up the inside and then in towards Paddock Hill Bend and goes through. Joey Foster goes through up in a position, but he runs wide on the exit of the corner, and so back up the inside comes back Round Greedo on the run up towards Druids. The different lines that they take as they sweep their way into view underneath the Brands Hatch Bridge. Niall Murray tries the outside line there on Michael Eastwell, gets two wheels on the dirt. Can he get to the inside in towards Graham Hill? Yes, he can. Nice stuff there from Niall Murray, and he regains a position ahead of Michael Eastwell. So the fight back begins for him now. I mean, he's still running in 7th place, so he has now gained a position from where he started, but it wasn't really in the script for him to get elbowed out wide in the first few corners. Further back, that is the number 65 car gaining place. That's Jack Wolfenden. Whoops, and then behind him, that was 88 Seb Melrose, also diving at the inside and gaining a position. As they flash back across the start-finish line again, anyone going to make a move into paddock this time around? Joe Foster's been good on the brakes for there so far in this race. Not quite close enough, for the time being at least. Back towards Druids they go again, and back in the pack there, that was around Guido, and yeah, around the outside of him, up the inside of Joey Foster, he was looking there, and Joey just about held on. Michael Eastwell's on the grass. That was Rory Smith that pushed him out a bit wide there. Eastwell, who started race 1 and 2 in good grid positions, got some decent results with a pair of third places, but starting back in the pack, he does appear to be struggling slightly now. That's Roger Orgy up the inside, who slithers his way through. And then next in line in car number 22 is Jonathan Brown, who can't quite get through for the time being, but certainly looking quick. Back onto the pit straight they go again, and we're side by side for the race lead. Hugo Bentley Ellis going around the outside of Neil McLennan. Can he get across to the inside into paddock? No, he can't. Neil McLennan, absolutely last of the late breakers, retakes the position as soon as he lost it. Oh, contact! Joe Foster into the back of Michael Moyes, and Moyes is off into the gravel trap and out of the race. Broken rear suspension, and Joey Foster involved in that as well. Now, was there any damage done to Foster's car? Because Joey is a real championship contender, and he is running wide up at Druids. He's now back behind Niall Murray, and he's almost banging wheels with Matt Round-Garrido in towards Graham Hill Bend. Joey Foster cannot afford another non-finish, because remember, Joey had a non-finish last time out at Knock Hill. There is Michael Moyes. He is very frustrated indeed with that. Didn't see how that one started, but it looked as though the move was attempted up the inside by Foster, and maybe the door was closed in his face. So it now means that as we possibly, yes, we are going safety car, and surprisingly with that car off the side of the road, Neil McLennan leads the way. Second place is Hugo Bentley Ellis. Third position is Jamie Thorburn. Fourth is Niall Murray. Fifth is Matt Round-Garrido. Sixth is still Joey Foster. Seventh, Nico Gruber. Eighth place for Rory Smith. Ninth, Roger Orgy. And Michael Eastwell in 10th position. But drama plenty. Now, what can we see from this angle here? Well, it looked as though Foster went for a move and they just sort of couldn't both get through the corner together. Michael Moore is lucky not to go over there, actually, as the car with its broken suspension dug into the gravel trap. But that was a real shame that that had to end that way. Joe Foster, though, has he escaped from that one unscathed, damage-wise? He appeared to be losing places in the next couple of corners, but was that simply a case of him having dirt on his tyres and just been sort of knocked offline? That's the Sebastian Job car, which appears to have become detached from the rest of the field somewhere, so he possibly has had another slight incident. Luke Cooper, incidentally, just to give you a check-up on the man who is second place in the championship, 20th place, so he's already gained 10 spots in the first, well, 4 minutes as it was of the race. We're just about to come up towards the 5-minute gone mark. So Luke Cooper is making good ground, and the safety car may well play into his hands. Here's a replay of the start. Good start made by McLennan from pole position. Look at the wheel spin there from the third place car of Thorburn, Jamie Thorburn, but they all stayed pretty much as they were. Niall Murray was the one that made a really good start around the outside line. Now he's gained a place on Michael Eastwell at this stage, has Niall Murray, and then somewhere in the first few corners he gets jostled back in the pack slightly. I'm not sure where, possibly up at, well, it must have been up at Druids around the outside line, but Niall is running now in 4th place, so all is not lost. The safety car gives him a chance just to regroup and possibly to try and figure out a way of, well, first and foremost getting on the podium, possibly even going for the hat-trick of race victories. It can be done. It's difficult to do, but it can be done. No one's done it yet this year. Coming into this race. Niall Murray has won 4 races, and then 1 apiece for Lucre Cooper, Matt Rangarido, Joey Foster and Neil McLennan. So McLennan looking to try and repeat what he did at Knockhill last time out by winning the reverse grid race 3. He had a 3rd and a 2nd in the first 2 races though, so it's fair to say that he didn't just benefit from the reverse grid. He still had to do quite a lot of overtaking in that 3rd race, but he did manage to come home a winner. Car being extricated from the gravel trap, we're being notified that we will not add any race time on. Remember back in race 2 earlier on this morning when we had a safety car, we added 5 minutes onto the race time. That will not happen now because we're running a little bit behind time, I think, here today with the various incidents we've had and just the odd little delay here and there. So the race time will not be extended. This will remain a 15-minute race. So this is eating into the time now. 8.5 minutes still to go. The TCR UK Honda Civic Type R safety car, given to us by TDI North, is leading the field around. Look at Niall Murray. I love watching Niall Murray. This is a strange thing to say, I realise, but I love watching Niall Murray behind the safety car or on a green flag lap because he throws that car around so aggressively to try and get some warmth into the tyres. You can see there the white car with the orange and blue flashes. If you see him starting to weave from side to side, he flings the car sideways so much so that you feel he's going to lose control of the car altogether and send it into the wall, but he always seems to have it just about on the edge of control, and that is a master at work. It's not just what you do when you're racing, but a lot of drivers, particularly rookie drivers, it's very tempting to just switch off and just relax when the safety car comes out, but there is work to be done. Even though it's so warm out there, you still need to keep the pressures up in the tyres. You need to keep some warmth in the tyres and the brakes, otherwise when the race restarts you'll have no grip when you arrive at Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. So the safety car lights are out. Where is Neil McLennan? He's really backing everybody up. Look at that, he's almost slowed to a halt down the Cooper Straight, and at some point he's going to go for it, and Hugo Bentley Ellis in 2nd place will be wanting to stick right with him, which he has not done. The Cliff Dempsey racing car has shot out of the gates. Look at that, brilliant restart from him. Niall Murray trying to overtake Jamie Thorburn, but you can't overtake until you cross the start finish line, so I'm not sure why he even attempted to do that. Leaders across the line anyway, and it will be a fairly healthy lead in Formula 4 1600 terms for Neil McLennan. Hugo Bentley Ellis in 2nd place, Jamie Thorburn 3rd, Niall Murray 4th, 5th for Matt Rangarido, and 6th for Joey Foster, whose car appears, well, he's certainly driving it like it's working okay, so let's assume there's no damage done to that car. He's back around the outside of Matt Rangarido now as they go up towards Druids. On the way out of the corner though, he was always going to get shown the edge of the road, so he backed out of it before that happened. Michael Eastwell trying to work his way back up the order. He's dropped all the way down to 10th place now, just behind Roger Orgy, and Roger will become his first target as he tries to work his way back through the order. So a 10-car lead breakaway then, basically. The lead at the line off the restart was 0.6 of a second. That's the biggest gap I think anyone's had all race long. Oh, spin there, further back in the pack. One car pointing the wrong way. That's car number 22. Let's hope everybody misses in. They're all arriving blind into the corner. That was Jonathan Brown, unfortunately, who looped around. As up front, Niall Murray goes for 3rd place, up the inside of Jamie Thorburn. Beautiful move made there by Niall Murray, and he moves his way into 3rd place. Thorburn tries to come back at him though, as they go towards Druids, looks at the outside line again. Oh, you've got Matt Rangarido in there as well, as they turn into the right-hander. Joe Foster runs wide too, but shame there for Jonathan Brown. He was running fairly well before that spin. Michael Eastwell up the inside of Roger Orgy. Brown has rejoined via the gravel trap just in time for the leaders to appear on the scene, so good timing there. He gets himself out of the way, so no yellow flags. That means we can still overtake up here. The lead gap stayed about the same last time round about 0.6 of a second, as you see that lead group of 10 cars flash their way through. But I would say that Hugo Bentley Ellis might just be closing in here slightly on Neil McLennan. Let's see, the gap was half a second, it's now 0.4 of a second. Brilliant lap there from Hugo Bentley Ellis. He's now right in the slipstream again, so McLennan had his chance to escape, and I don't think he's going to be able to make it stick. And of course Hugo Bentley Ellis is bringing Niall Murray with him, so Niall Murray is certainly sensing an opportunity here to go for the race victory. Whoops, car in the gravel trap further back. I can see the cloud of dust. It was someone just outside the top. Oh no, it's Joey Foster. It's Joey Foster off into the gravel trap at Druids, and it's not been a good race for the Irish, I'm afraid. And a weekend that promised so much with those 2 2nd places unfortunately ends in the gravel trap, and that will be his 2nd non-finish of the year. You can drop your worst 4 scores, Well, he's already had 2 non-finishes now. You still score points, though, even if you don't finish. One of the quirks of the point scoring system is that you score 2 points even if you don't finish, but that's only 2 points rather than 32 points available for a race victory. It's Neil McLennan who at the moment is on course for those 32 points, but he's coming under all sorts of pressure from Hugo Bentley-Ellis in second, Niall Murray in third, and Jamie Thorburn, who refuses to say die, in fourth position. There's then that gap back to Rangrido in fifth, of course, now that we've lost Joey Foster. Oh, we've lost Matt Rangrido as well, so there's an even bigger gap back now. So Matt Rangrido appears to have just crawled to a halt there up towards Paddock Hill Bend. So they're dropping like flies in this race, again, a bit like they did in race 2. And again, it's some quite big hitters who are running into difficulties. Not sure whether maybe there'd been contact between he and Joey Foster, and that had led to his retirement, but that was a shame for Matt Rangrido, who had a decent weekend, actually, with a 6th yesterday and a 4th earlier on this morning. Back with the lead gaggle then. It's 4 cars now for the race lead with 3 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock. It's McLennan that leads the way. It's Bentley-Ellis in second. It's Niall Murray in third. And it's Jamie Thorburn in fourth. Niall Murray, having got that third place away from Thorburn, hasn't really made many inroads into the top 2. I mean, he can't get much closer to the top 2, but he hasn't really been looking desperate to find a way through. So is Niall... he'll be very much aware that most of his championship contenders have either fallen by the wayside or are running behind him, so maybe he'll be content to just run in third place, and if an opportunity presents itself, he'll go for it. But rather than go for a move and end up damaging the car and not finishing the race, maybe it's more prudent just to sit in third place, not looking to the inside there and towards clearway. So he'll try and get the slipstream down the pit straight, I'm sure, as they flash past the pit lane. But McLennan just keeping that car length or so advantage over Hugo Bentley-Ellis in second, but Hugo closing in the slipstream. This is the best chance he's had to go for the race lead here. He looks to the inside line, but Niall Murray looks to the inside of him, and in the end it's stalemate. No one's actually able to make the move, but they were all sort of jockeying for position then and braking. But if Murray had committed to the move on Bentley-Ellis, at the same time Bentley-Ellis had committed to the move on the race leader, they could well have made contact, so they did well to avoid that there. Back down the hill, McLennan therefore pulls out that couple of car lengths advantage again. 2 minutes to go, there or thereabouts, so still time for a couple more laps here in this one. Into the left-hander at Surtees. Rory Smith, by the way, is now 5th, with Michael Eastwell 6th, Nico Gruber 7th, Roger Orgy is 8th, Josh Smith is 9th, having not finished the previous race, and Matt Rivette is 10th. So quite a few drivers are on for really good results here that maybe they didn't predict pre-race. Back across the line, Bentley-Ellis again in the tow, but is he going to be late enough on the brakes into paddock to have a go for the race lead? He might be more preoccupied holding on to this second place, but Hugo is looking for his first ever podium in the championship, and he's not going to want to throw that away towards Druids. Murray therefore will maybe sense that if he were to go for a move on Hugo, maybe Hugo wouldn't just slam the door in his face, because Hugo would want to try and keep that car in one piece. Kevin Mills Racing squad preparing the number 38 car. But it is looking like Neil McLennan, with I reckon a lap to go after this one, has he done enough to answer all of the questions asked of him by the 3 cars behind? Bentley-Ellis, I'd say, is now preoccupied defending from Niall Murray and Jamie Thorburn. Yellow flags up at clearway, not sure why. It must be a car that's off in a dangerous position. But the leaders come across the start-finish line and on to the final lap of the race. And Hugo Bentley-Ellis looking to the outside line into Paddock Hill Bend, but that opens the door for Niall Murray, maybe to get up the inside of him. No, doesn't happen. What about the exit speed? Big twitch there for the race leader McLennan, but it's not enough to open the door for Bentley-Ellis, and that might have been his best chance gone to try and find a way through into the race lead. You never know though, this is Formula 4 1600 racing, but he's now having to defend once more from Niall Murray, who's trying to get alongside for second as they drop down into Graham Hill Bend. A bit defensive on the way in there for Bentley-Ellis. That slows him down on the exit of the corner, but you can't run side by side through Surtees in an open wheel single-seater, so they stay single file. One more chance to overtake if the yellow flags have gone in, which I think they might have done, because Murray's looking up the inside, but he's just too far back, couldn't quite make it stick, so it will be a drag race to the line. But Neil McLennan is going to take his second race victory of the year to catapult himself back into championship contention. Neil McLennan wins round number 9 of the Avon Tyres National Formula 4 Championship. Second and a first ever podium for Hugo Bentley-Ellis, and third place goes to Niall Murray. Fourth is Jamie Thorburn, and fifth for Rory Smith, whilst Michael Eastwell in sixth set the fastest lap of the race on the final lap of the race, because these cars running on grooved tyres, they don't really experience the same sort of tyre wear that you see from cars that run on slick racing tyres, so you can run those sort of lap times all day long, as proven there by Michael Eastwell. Neil McLennan though, very, very happy with that race victory, and it was much much needed. He came into this race quite a long way back on scratch points, but of course once you take into account that he didn't even race at Silverstone, then had a DNF yesterday, well, he's used up all 4 of his non-scores now, but once you take them out of the equation, actually he's right in contention, because the races he has finished, he's been on, well, he had 2 podiums and a win at Knock Hill, and he had a 8th place in race 2 today and a race win in race 3, so he will be right in the mix. McLennan wins it. Bentley Ellis in 2nd, 3rd place for Niall Murray. Again, 3 different models of car in the top 3, with Jamie Thorburn 4th and Rory Smith in the Medina in 5th. Michael Easterwell is 6th ahead of Nico Groover in 7th. Roger Orgy is 8th. Josh Smith is 9th, and Chris Middlehurst rounds out the top 10. Top 10 separated by only 6.1 seconds. The top 4 covered by less than 1 second. Matt Rivette is 11th. Luke Cooper from the back of the grid to 12th, ahead of Seth Melrose, Thomas Capet-Zone, James Clark, then John Svensson, Henry Chart, Carter Williams, Pascal Monbaron, and Vincent J rounding out the top 20. Then it's Sebastian Jobe, Sam Street, Richard Morris, David Maloney, Jonathan Brown after that late spin, and then Daniel O'Byrne, Jack Wolfenden, Matt Rangel-Rido significantly, and Joey Foster significantly, and Michael Moyers significantly, all retirements, not scoring just 2 points for not finishing the race. So the Formula 4 drivers, as I said earlier on, based in the outer paddocks. Sadly, we won't get a chance to chat to our top 3 finishers, but you can catch up with all of the action from the National Formula Ford 1600 Championship with Avon Tyres. Actually, their next round of the championship, not on the TCR UK package. They're heading over to Kyrgyzstan. They'll be back with us at Castle Combe in July. Here are some of the highlights from what was a cracking 3rd encounter of the weekend for the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford Championship. It was another fairly sedate start, with the top 4 or 5 cars running single file through Paddock Hill Bend. Niall Murray and Joey Foster already doing battle from the early stages further down the order. All clean through Paddock for the first time, but then a few laps later it was less clean as Michael Moyers and Joey Foster came together, with Moyers being deposited into the Paddock Hill Bend gravel trap and into retirement. He was out of the race. The safety car made a brief appearance. We had a spin for Jonathan Brown in the meantime up at Clearways, and he was then faced with every driver's worst nightmare, facing the rest of the pack charging towards him. He recovered though and finished the race. The lead battle then developed into a 4-way scrap, which was won by Neil McLennan. He weathered the storm and kept everyone behind him to take his 2nd victory of 2018. So the weather continues to be glorious here at Brands Hatch. The Formula Ford drivers even, have put on quite a show this weekend, and we will look forward to seeing them back in action a bit later on this year. Good afternoon, everybody. Time for something a little bit different now. It is very nice indeed to have the HRDC All-Stars with us on the TCR UK package this weekend. We've had lots of ultra-modern machinery out there racing today. Nice to get a little look back to yesteryear with a grid full of 1950s and 60s sports and touring cars, and some real variety out there on the grid. Some very expensive machinery out there, but they race them very, very hard indeed. Lots of respect, of course, given between the drivers, and a real spectacle they make as they make their way around the circuit in close proximity. It is a 30-minute race, this, for the HRDC All-Stars, and single driver cars, so they will be going whole race distance on their own, but it will be fascinating to see which of these cars comes out on top, because qualifying this morning was very, very close indeed. Charles Rainford even took the pole position in his beautiful 1965 Marcos 1800 GT. Alongside him on the front row will be Peter Chambers in a Lotus Ford Cortina Mark 1, and they were separated by only 2/100ths of a second. But two more different cars you couldn't hope to see. You've got the little low-slung, sleek sports car of the Marcos, and then the big, boxy, angular, the iconic shape of the Lotus Cortina. And they both have different strengths and weaknesses. Some cars will be quicker in a straight line, some will be quicker around the corners. And of course, with cars of this sort of age, you do always have to wonder about reliability and whether they're going to make it right to the end of the race. See some of the Austin A40s and Austin A35s in the Academy class down towards the tail end of the field. The Austin A35 Academy has a class all to itself, and they will produce plenty of exciting racing. There you can see the grid in all of its glory, looking particularly stunning in the summer sunshine here at Brands Hatch. So the red Marcos of Charles Rainsford on pole position, Pete Chambers alongside. There are the fans soaking up the sun trackside. They've had a very entertaining day's racing here today at Brands Hatch, and cars make their way out onto the green flag lap. So cars run across, as I said, several different classes, and the HRDC All-Stars is not a championship, it's a series of races. There are no championship points, so yeah, you're sort of trying to win your class, that's always the aim, but most of the drivers will be fairly happy racing anybody they come across, really. Here is the grid. It's Rainford that leads the way from Chambers on row 1. David Alexander in an Alfa Romeo Sprint GT is on row 2, alongside the Lenham Sprite of Ben Colburn in 4th. Row 3 for Neil Merry and Ian Burford, Alfa Romeo ahead of Austin Healey. Then it is a pair of the big V8 Fords, the Mustang of Fred Shepherd and the Falcon of Andrew Edwards. Then we have, rounding out the top 10, Thomas Grindle in the MG, and another Austin Healey, the Austin Healey Jamaican of Matthew Moore, rounds out the top 10. Outside of the top 10 then, row number 6, we see Brian Small and Ding Boston in his Riley 1.5. Then it is Steve Potts ahead of Gerard Buggy, ahead of Barry Lavelle, and Frank Slevin in his Alfa Romeo Giulia. Ben Anderson is the first of the Austin A30 Academy cars in 17th, ahead of Mark Swaffer in his A40 Speedwell. Then rounding out the top 20, William Davison and Tony Shirtcliffe, another two of the A35 Academy cars. Then it's Jim Ayling in another Academy car, ahead of Graham Love in the Mark 7 Jaguar, which should have been a bit further up the order than that. Hopefully, whatever issues they had in qualifying, they've solved. That is ahead of Rob Burdett. Then it's Chris Rea, yes, that Chris Rea in the Morris Minor police car. That is an ex-police car, the Morris Minor 1957 Morris Minor that starts 24th, ahead of Joel Hawkins, Piers Townsend in the Daimler, and another one of the Austin A35s at the back, Bruce Chapman. So there is Chris Rea in that, as I say, that is a 100% original Morris Minor police car from the late 50s, early 60s, that, of course, has been turned into a race car, because what else would you do if you acquired yourself a 1950s police car? And it runs appropriately enough to car number 999, and runs within the ASC class. And we'll try and keep you posted with the various class leaders as we go through this 30-minute race. So Marcos versus Lotus Ford Cortina on the front row of the grid. And who is going to get the start? Both of those cars, of course, the majority of these cars at the front of the field, rear-wheel drive. It is a standing start, though, and a lot of the clutches on these cars can be temperamental at the best of times, so they won't want to overstress them unnecessarily here. Looks like there's a bit of confusion at the back of the grid, maybe a couple of gaps, but we are ready to go racing then. For 30 minutes in the HRDC All-Stars race here at Brands Hatch, Charles Rainford and Peter Chambers on row 1 together. Lights go out, away we go. One car stalls further back in the pack. Let's hope everybody misses it. That's very close indeed. I think that might have been the 76 car of Thomas Grindle. They do all miss him, but the Marcos from pole position also stalled. So Charles Rainford did not get going, which means it is going to be Pete Chambers that leads through Paddock Hill Bend with a very, very handsome margin over the rest of the field. So I was so preoccupied with the other car that had stalled, I missed the fact that Rainford hadn't got going. So Charles Rainford from pole position goes nowhere, and that is a real shame because we were looking forward to the battle between he and Pete Chambers. They might be able to get the car fired up with a push start. The marshals are attempting to get it moved out of the way. We'll wait and see whether he's able to join in at the back. The rest of the field files through. There's the Alfa Romeo of Neil Merry, the Giulia GTA running in the top 10, but no, it looks like the Marcos is going no further. That is not what we wanted to see at all. The rest of them stream through, picking out some of the A35 Academy cars. There is the first of those ASC class car, sorry, ACD car, excuse me, and the pole sitter there was Ben Anderson. I believe he is still leading the class, but leading the race, there's no doubt about it, is Pete Chambers in the Ford Lotus Cortina by 2.6 seconds over Ben Colburn, who's come through into second place in his Lennon Sprite GT. Ben qualified fourth on the grid. Then third place we've got from the 56 car of David Alexander, the Alfa Romeo. Fourth place then from number 81, Andrew Edwards, the Ford Falcon. There it goes. That's come through from 8th on the grid to 4th at the end of the first lap. He runs a bit wide over the top of the hill at Druids, and so Ian Burford's Austin Healey is snapping at his heels, and this is the typical David and Goliath battles that are so commonplace in these HRDC series, because we have the big booming V8 engine of the Ford going up against that much less powerful Austin Healey Sebring of Ian Burford, which is running rings around it through the corners, but in a straight line can't quite keep up. There's the Jag a bit further back, car number 23 making its move. That's Graham Love in that Mark 7 Jag that I mentioned, as he tries to go right round the outside there. We've got number 76 car up the inside as well, and that is a car that's fallen down the order. Thomas Grindle in his MG has not had a great start, and the outside there goes car number 25 Stephen Potts, the Alfa Romeo Giulia Super. The Jag stretches its legs. It's one of the most ungainly cars you'll ever see on a racetrack, that big Jag, but it's certainly got some track presence, that's for sure. The A35 Academy was being led by Ben Anderson. It's no longer being led by Ben Anderson. It's now being led by the 174 car of Tony Shercliffe. So Tony Shercliffe has made some good progress. Whoops, out onto the grass there. That's the number 30 car of Matthew Moore. That's the Austin Healey Jamaican, another unique specimen, and he is having to work the wheel fairly hard to keep that thing going in vaguely a straight line. There's the Ford Mustang going through. That is car number 1, Fred Shepherd. Whoops, it's all getting very, very close indeed. Now this is the battle for the lead of the Academy class, and diving up the inside into second place again goes Ben Anderson, and he'll get past both of them because they both got held up there by the MG of Thomas Grindle. And so Ben Anderson says thank you very much and goes past the pair of them. So car 143 back into the class lead now. Down to second place will go Tony Shercliffe, and down to third will go the 178 of Will Davison. So I said that the Academy class is often where we get some of the closest racing in the HRDC All-Star Series, and they're proving my point here with the top 3 separated by very little. They've now got an Alfa Romeo joining in the fun as well, though, heading across the start finish line. That's the 25 machine going back through into Paddock Hill Bend with Stephen Potts, the Giulia Super, and almost collides, in fact, with Shercliffe's 174 car. We've also got now but Will Davison, as I said, joining in the fun as well, third place in class, but that Alfa should be a bit further up the order than that. He qualified 13th, did Stephen Potts, and is currently running down in 17th place, well 16th place now. Changed for second in the Academy class is there, but the inside is attempting to go 178 car of Will Davison. He does make the move stick. Shercliffe gets edged out onto the grass and has to duck back in line. You can see most of these cars carrying registration plates. That's because the majority of them, if not all of them, are road legal, and it's not uncommon at all to see the drivers, particularly if they live local to the circuit, driving their car to the track and then putting the race stickers on and then sending it on its way for the qualifying session in the racing, and you don't even have to take the number plate off. So these are great investments if you've got the time and the passion to put into maintaining them, and you can have a road car that you enjoy driving on country drives round your time off, and then you can go and race them at the weekend. There's the 157 car going through. That's Mark Swaffer in the A40 Speedwell. We see those cars running fairly well often in the HRDC touring race. Indeed, Andrew and Mike Jordan here racing Austin A40 in the touring race. And, that car a little bit quicker, of course, than the A35s. In theory, some of these A35 drivers are very, very rapid indeed. 117, another one of the A35s, that's Jim Ailing. There is the race leader. That is Pete Chambers, his lead. 7.3 seconds, would you believe, over Ben Colburn, who's still second. There he goes in his Lenham Sprite GT. Third place for David Alexander. So this is quite close actually between the Lenham and the Alpha, which goes up the inside and retakes the position. Colburn, excuse me, I beg your pardon, going through past the back marker. I beg your pardon, to negotiate the back marker down at Graham Hill Bend. You forget sometimes that these cars, with such a speed differential between them, they catch the back of the pack fairly quickly. We've only been racing for 6 minutes, and already back markers starting to come into play. Car number 14 there is one car that we haven't seen yet. We've seen this car, number 76, Thomas Grindle in the MG. He is continuing his march in the field. Barry Lavelle is the Tornado Talisman in front of him, the number 14 car. And it looks as though the MG is quicker. You'd expect it to be quicker because he did out-qualify Lavelle fairly handsomely in yesterday's qualifying session. He looks to the outside into clearways, then cuts back to the inside line on the exit, carries a bit more speed onto the pit straight, and will indeed go through. So Grindle, that puts him, by my reckoning, into 11th place, I think. Let's see when he crosses the start-finish line. He'll trigger the timing beam just there, and yes, Grindle 11th, 6 seconds now behind the number 36 machine of Brian Small, the Ashley MG Midget. Understeer there from the Lotus Cortina as it comes through the final turn, already right in the mix with the Austin A35 Academy cars, and the A40s in fact in front now that he's about to pick his way through. And even though he's got this very handsome lead at the front of the field over Ben Colburn, who comes through now in the Lenham Sprite GT, he is not going to have a lonely race anymore. He had those first, 5 laps maybe, if that, where he wasn't surrounded by anyone else, and now he's straight away back into all of the traffic. There is the top 6 or 7 through. Ding Boston there we can see going through. Haven't seen Ding yet in this race. Ding Boston sometimes races an Alfa Romeo, sometimes races that Riley 1.5. There is car number 56, David Alexander. So David Alexander running in 4th place now, having actually recently lost that position to the number 81 car of Andrew Edwards. So, although they're side by side again here in towards Surtees. Oh, that's very close indeed, and Andrew Edwards trying to retake the position. And again, the the Falcon with much more straight line speed, but doesn't necessarily have the greatest chassis for a tight and technical circuit such as this one. Look at the way that it will gobble up the Alfa Romeo as it comes back across the start-finish line. This is what happened last lap. He got his nose ahead of the line, blasts through like he's lit the afterburners, gets Chris Rear's car, the Morris Minor police car, in between them. And then as soon as they get to a corner, the Alfa dives straight back on the inside. So on the face of it, you think this was a bit frustrating maybe for David Alexander, but he'll be enjoying it, trust me, because when you've got the car that's quicker through the corners, you have no choice but to drive it on the door handles. But then it's fair to say that doing just that at the moment is Andrew Edwards. He's trying to get every last ounce of performance out of that car through the tight right hand there at Druids. Opens up the taps again down the Cooper Straight and simply drives on through. But there's a corner coming up now, so the Alfa Romeo comes into its own. Rocking on the suspension, these cars running on historic tyres, of course, so they really don't yield all that much grip. But that's the idea. We want the cars to be moving around, and boy, are they moving around. Ah, dear, that is unfortunately something else that is fairly commonplace in historic racing, and that is a car that has very much expired, I'm afraid. I think that was Piers Townsend whose car had come to grief. And speaking of come to grief, we've got a car in the gravel trap at Paddock Hill Bend, 2 cars, and one of them I fear might be the MG of Thomas Grindle. I couldn't quite see, there was a yellowish car, the other one was number 22 Gerard Buggy, and they were fighting for 11th place. There is Gerard's car. And yeah, that's the MG. That is Thomas Grindle off as well. Now, 2 cars off in the barriers. That will almost certainly require the safety car. The field appears to be slowing down. Red flag has been thrown, so they're stopping the race, and that is just to allow the marshals to get on the scene as quickly as possible and make sure the drivers are okay, get the cars extricated from the dangerous position, and hopefully we'll be able to get a race restart before too much longer. 20.5 minutes then remain on the clock, so it may well be that when we do go racing again it will be a shortened race, but that is a shame that those two cars, of course, have been enjoying watching Thomas Grindle's drive through the field. Yes, and that MG, well, possibly looks worse than it is. The bonnet's been dislodged as it's made its way into the tyre wall, and the live snatch vehicle makes its way out. But I think with two cars off, it was going to take quite some time to recover them. And of course, you have to take extra care with these cars being of such value. You can see both drivers there, Grindle and Buggy, both watching on from the sidelines. And in fact, Gerard trying to run back up through the gravel trap, which is easier said than done. There's also some fluid down, of course, from the car that we saw expiring rather spectacularly of Piers Townsend. So they're trying to ascertain, first of all, what it is, and secondly, what they need to do with it to clear it all up. So a slight pause in proceedings then here from Brands Hatch with the HRDC All-Stars grid. The cars making their way back down onto the grid, and of course now we have the issue of overheating, not just the cars but the drivers as well, who are opening the doors, wafting them from side to side to try and get some coolish air into the cars, but the air outside the cars is not that cool. It's a very, very warm and sunny day here at Brands Hatch. We shouldn't complain. We enjoy the good weather here in summertime down in the Garden of England, but it is rather hard work when you're working away behind the wheel of one of these cars, especially since you have to do so much work. You may not be going all that quickly compared to, say, a TCR car or a Formula Ford car, but you're putting in more than twice the effort on the steering wheel because the thing does not want to go in a straight line. And even the better handling cars, comparatively, are a real handful. Cement dust going down up at Druids, and so this could be a fairly lengthy delay, I fear, because I don't know how much further around the circuit that car went, spilling its fluid. I'm hoping it pulled off on the exit of Druids, in which case they might not have to put all that much cement dust down. Of course, when we do get racing again, though, although that is there to soak up the fluid, cement dust is not the grippiest surface on which to drive, so it could still be a challenge for the drivers when we get the race resumed. I'll remind you that Pete Chambers is leading the way. Now, of course, a full race restart will be from a standing start again, presumably, and Pete Chambers, having built up that 13 3/4 second margin over Ben Colburn, will have to really get his elbows out if he's going to hang on to that lead. Colburn was second. Third place was Andrew Edwards, who's made the most ground from 8th on the grid in the Ford Falcon. Fourth place was David Alexander. I believe we can see a replay of, yes, there we go, so it was the 89 of Piers Townsend, and that is all of the fluid, I think, from that car being left right on the racing line, and there the aftermath. Oh, I see, right, so the two cars that went off at Paddock Hill Bend went off on the fluid that had been dropped. That makes sense. So there was no fault of either of the drivers there. It was simply a case of they arrived at Paddock Hill Bend at full speed, only to find that there was fluid all over the circuit. Now that means that there's fluid, at the very least, stretching from Paddock Hill Bend to Druids. It may be covering the whole track near enough. So yes, I sense a fairly lengthy delay is in the offing here. But the ever hard-working British Marshals make their way onto the track, and yes, you can see that's stretching right the way through Paddock, all the way back up Halewood Hill, right on the racing line as well, and then underneath the bridge. By that point, Piers Townsend had realised there was a problem and pulled offline, but they still need to dress the circuit, and then all the way on the exit of Druids as well. And how much further around the circuit, I wonder, did Piers get before he eventually pulled off? Well, it looks like he at least reached Graham Hill Bend, because the cement just being put down there as well. What's the betting he tried to get right the way back round to the pit lane, I wonder? There is the Marcos being, and Charles Rainford watching on as that Marcos is very gently put onto the low loader. It's a real shame that we didn't get to see a resumption of that battle between Pete Chambers and Charles Rainford from qualifying, where they were, as I said, they lapped within a few hundredths of each other. yes, a fairly extensive operation, but drive was absolutely okay. Actually, not that much damage done to the cars, but they were just in a dangerous position. And with oil all over the circuit, it was absolutely the right decision made to throw the red flag and allow the marshals the best opportunity to get the circuit cleared. So the HRDC All-Stars, as I said, a series, not a championship. Cars get split between different classes, so we have Class ACD, ASC, and then the GT class, the TC65 class, and the TG class. So the ACD class I mentioned earlier on, that's the A30 and A35 Academy car class. So predominantly A35 Academy cars. There are a couple of A40s, and there is an A30 as well in there of Ben Anderson, which is an A30. So it's actually the slightly older version of the car, all running with the 1275 engine. Then we have ASC, which is where we have a bit more variety, everything from Mini Coopers to Austin Healey's. They're the sort of smaller engine capacities, all of them under 1400 cc engine capacities, and the MG of Thomas Grindle in that class. Then we have the GT class. That's where we get a few of the more powerful sort of sports car type things. That's where Charles Rainford's Marcos was entered, and the Tornado Talisman of Barry Lavelle as well. TC65 class, that is for 1960s touring cars. So we have the Alfa Romeos, the Ford Cortina of Pete Chambers running in the TC65 class, the Ford Mustang as well of Fred Shepherd, and the Falcon of Andrew Edwards. And then class TG, where we have the Alfa Romeo Giulia and the Riley and the Jaguar Mark 7 as well. So the grid for the restart will be as they were running pretty much when the red flag came out. So Pete Chambers will have the pole, Ben Colburn will be in second place, Andrew Edwards will be third in the Falcon, and he'll be looking for a good start, try and use some of that power to maybe get himself out in front. David Alexander will be fourth in the Alfa Sprint GT, then fifth for Fred Shepherd, who we haven't really mentioned yet, but Fred Shepherd in the Mustang, car number 1, will be right in the mix as well off the restart. Then it's Neil Merry in sixth in his Giulia GTA Alfa Romeo. Matthew Moore is next in line. Matthew Moore in the Austin Healey Jamaican, ahead of Dick Boston in the Riley. Ian Burford is next up then, 9th place for Ian's Austin Healey Sebring, and Brian Small will round out the top 10 in the Ashley MG Midget. Then it will be, well, it won't be Thomas Grindle or Gerard Buggy because they were both deposited in the gravel trap. So Barry Lavelle will be next, ahead of Frank Slevin, and Stephen Potts and Ben Anderson. Ben Anderson still leading the Academy class. That's going to be a close battle though to watch between Anderson, Will Davison and Tony Shirkley. The top 3 Academy cars all running together, 16th, 17th and 18th. Graham Love 19th and Mark Swaffer in 20th place. Then it is well, in fact, that might be about it because we've lost quite a few, I think, haven't we, before the red flag came out. So we'll see who else turns up on the grid. The grid is being, they're being taken off the circuit now by the looks of it. So we are not going to restart the race, I believe, is the plan. So the cars are being taken straight through to the Parc Ferme and outer paddock. Unfortunately, this was just going to take far too long, I think. We have other races to come, of course. We've got our second race of the weekend for TCR UK coming up next. And with such a tight timetable and tight turnarounds between races, a lengthy delay like this, they can't really afford. And the drivers will understand that, I'm sure. It's a shame. But we did at least get to see them for a short time out on the circuit, and we look forward to having them back. I believe they will be back with us on the TCR package for a few rounds later on this season. So a shame that that was all we got of the HRDC All-Stars, but a victory therefore for Peter Chambers, who takes the victory from Ben Colburn in second, and third position going the way of car number 81, Andrew Edwards. So what we did get of that race was very entertaining indeed. It was a very entertaining start, a stall in the midfield, but also an issue for pole sitter Charles Rainford, meaning that he never took the start. He was very nearly wiped out by a few cars as the rest of the field got going. That allowed Pete Chambers to pull out into a commanding and, in the end, an assailable race lead. Everyone slithered and sliding their way through Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. The Academy cars providing the bulk of the action further back as Chambers serenely continued on his way. Sideways antics all the way through as Thomas Grindle tried to move his way up through the order and was doing so with aplomb. Very sideways stuff from the Falcon of Andrew Edwards as he diced away for a podium position as Chris Rea was continuing to circulate in his Morris Minor. Unfortunately, it all came to an end when Piers Townsend's engines let go, depositing oil all over the circuit and catching out several drivers. The red flags flew, and with a very tight turnaround between this and the next race, the decision was taken to end the race early, and it was therefore a victory for Peter Chambers in the Ford Lotus Cortina. So good racing whilst we had it from the HRDC All-Stars, and we hope that for the remaining rounds of their season they can get a little bit more racing in. Great variety on the grid, and it will be interesting to see who we get out for the next race. With being a series, not a championship, you get different drivers turning up to each race, and you never quite know what grid you're going to get until you turn up on the day. Great stuff though from the All-Stars, the HRDC Touring Greats here at Brands Hatch as well this weekend. They always run around in a package, and we look forward to having them back on the TCR bill at some point in the very near future.
Welcome to Brands Hatch for the second TCR UK race of the day, round 6 of TCR UK. The car's just leaving the pits, heading round to the grid, and I'll be catching up with quite a few of the drivers over the next 5 minutes or so. Slight delayed start, but to tell you more is my commentator here at Brands Hatch, Andy McEwen.
Yes, thank you very much, Bryn. We enjoyed a very lively opening race of the day earlier on. There's been plenty of other lively racing today in some of the sport categories as well, hence the reason that we have this little delay. The cars, as you can see, heading around to the grid. In the meantime, let's take a look back at some of the highlights from race 1. Well, it was a fantastic race with Dan Lloyd and Ollie Taylor lining up on the front row of the grid after a very tense qualifying session indeed. Ollie always fancied his chances from the outside of row 1, and he proved himself right by snatching the lead on the run down towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Dan Lloyd, though, stayed right on his tail throughout the early part of the race, with Lewis Kent with an aggressive start into third. He then collided with Andreas Beckman down at Graham Hill Bend before further contact for Andreas down at Surtees with Josh Price caused him to make the save of the day. In the ensuing melee, though, there was a bit more contact behind as Finley Crocker and Howard Fuller came together. No fault of either of the driver, they were just trying to avoid the spinning Beckman, but Howard ended up being spun to the back of the field. Up front, Dan Lloyd eventually made the move stick on Ollie Taylor. It was an inch perfect manoeuvre up at clearways, whilst Alex Morgan was running into various mechanical issues in the Began. Howard Fuller had a big moment trying to find a way past Darrell Wilson, whilst Andreas Beckman was racing with a rejuvenated Stuart Lyons and Finley Crocker, both of whom got through in this opportunistic bit of driving up at Surtees. The West Coast Racing squad watched on anxiously to see how Dan Lloyd could look after his tyres in the race lead. Finley Crocker wasn't really looking after his tyres, though, with his sideways antics further back. Lloyd won the race in the end by just under 2 seconds from Ollie Taylor, whilst Lewis Kent got his and the team's first ever podium finish in TCR racing. Dan Lloyd therefore makes it 5 wins from 5, extends his championship lead, whilst Ollie Taylor's second place was enough to move him back into the runner-up position in the championship ahead of Andreas Beckman. 3 very happy drivers up on the podium post-race, and those drivers are now starting to make their way around to the grid ahead of our second 30-minute encounter. This is the reversed grid race, remember. The top 10 second fastest qualifying times from the qualifying session yesterday are reversed to form this reverse grid second race, and so Dan Lloyd will be starting down in the midfield, 9th on the grid for Dan Lloyd though, because with the 2 DPE Alfa Romeo Giuliettas unfortunately having to withdraw with 2 different mechanical issues, different different issue with each car, they've had to just change the grid slightly, so Dan Lloyd starts 9th rather than 10th. Carl Swift and Stuart Lyons making an all maximum motorsport row 1, so the 2 Cupras on the front row of the grid together. And they will be determined to try and make that stick into the first corner. We've had a race just now for the HRDC All-Stars, and there was a car that had a fairly spectacular engine failure and spread oil across pretty much the entire circuit, certainly the whole first half of the circuit. You can see the cement dust that has been dropped, has been placed on top of the fluid there throughout the first half of the lap. So through Paddock Hill Bend, back down through the dip and up the hill towards Druids. It's on the racing line though, through Paddock and through Druids, so that's going to make things really lively on the first lap. Of course, the cement dust is put down to soak up the fluid, but cement dust itself is quite slippery, and so until that top surface of the cement dust has been swept away, the slippery surface flags will be displayed, presumably, just to warn the drivers that there might be a slight limit of adhesion, and so that is going to be an added challenge over the first lap or so of the race. Ollie Taylor's car there, we can see weaving its way down through the grid. We saw some real elbows out racing at the start of race number 1. Throwing a reverse grid race at the end of the day, and a group of fired up touring car drivers all determined to stop Dan Lloyd winning, and we could see even more drama. Of course, Dan is rather enjoying his winning spree that he's been going on. 5 wins from the first 5 races, comfortable championship leader as we've documented, but Ollie Taylor came closer than I think anyone else has really come all year to beating him in that first race, and so he will be hopeful that he can, now he's starting of course 1 position in front of Dan Lloyd, again on the outside line of the grid for Ollie. He'll be hoping that he can keep Dan behind him. Well, down on pole position we can see Carl Swift's car being raced on the jacks, and stood there ready and waiting to have a chat with our pole sitter is Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, thanks very much there, Andy. You caught me red-handed here, just trying to get the net down here of Carl, who's just pulled into position. Now, Carl, we were talking off-camera here a few days, actually, it seems like days ago, it was only yesterday, really, that you've changed over box, and this car seems to be performing so much better.
It does. It feels loads better. That last race was good. The pace at the end was good. It was bit too low on the tyre pressure, so it weren't punchy enough at the start. So we corrected that, and hopefully we can defend as well as we can from here.
And you've got that lovely sight ahead of you that Dan had in race 1 of nothing ahead of you, something to protect.
Yeah, first time this year I've seen nothing ahead, so I'll try and keep it as long as I can.
What do you think you can do realistically in this race?
If the tyres switch on earlier and I've got the pace that I had at the end of that's the first race, early doors, I'll be defending this all the way through.
Well, best luck to you. We'll keep an eye out. Good luck. There you go, Carl Swift there. I'm not even going to bother putting the mesh back up. He'll get one of his team to do it because we're going to head further back down here. Stuart Lyons to the side as well. Now, remember that Carl and Stuart have pulled their resources and worked together quite dramatically over the last week, in fact, really, since they made that decision. And actually what they've done is they've worked very, very cleverly because they don't have a qualifying setup, they have a race setup. So in qualifying, their time wasn't really representative of what they were doing qualifying, but it is representative of their race pace, and it's looking pretty hot. Finley Crocker here, he had a interesting race 1. When I spoke to Finley, I mean, he finished 7th, he starts 5th. He was sort of up and down about how it went, really. He wasn't too happy with his performance. He thinks the car has got a lot more in it, but he also said the back end is quite twitchy. Now, Josh Files, who's helped mentor him, if he had his way, he'd make it even twitchier, but he's not getting his way, apparently. So Finley has said no to that. And as I head a little bit further up, I'm going to grab Howard Fuller because we spoke to Howard a couple of rounds ago, in fact, the first round at Silverstone, and he was looking pretty up for it. He was pretty quick there. He's got a few issues with the car this weekend. Sorry, a few issues with the car this time round, not performing as he'd like. Howard, not the ideal starting point for you, and the car not performing quite as you'd like, but race 1 was a tough one for you, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think we got off the line really well. I mean, we really struggled at Silverstone getting off the line, so we pretty much did what we needed to do on that opening lap. I did say to you I was going to be more feisty, and I certainly was, but unfortunately it got a little bit messy at the front there going through the S's, which is a shame. So perhaps something needs to be addressed to make sure that we are giving each other enough room. We picked up a lot of damage, unfortunately, so the car wasn't handling the way we wanted to, but you know what, we still showed we had the pace to be where we need to be. I'm going to have a lot of fun from back here, so if you're watching, please do, because yeah, we're going to be making some moves through the pack, and hopefully we can come out of it in a good position and no damage.
Well, I know that you just love being in the car, and I know you like being competitive, so we'll let you get into the mind frame, and good luck.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
There you go, Howard Fuller there. He's always very upbeat, even when things aren't going well. What I'll do now is I'll hand back over to Andy, though, Andy McEwen, to call this one. This one's going to be quite exciting with this reverse grid. Andy, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Bryn. Reverse grid touring car races are always exciting. Reverse grid races in any category are always exciting. We've seen that over the course of the day, and this one will be no exception, I'm sure. Carl Swift and Stuart Lyons on the front row of the grid. Now, there are two characters for you. There are two people who, yes, they take their racing seriously, and yes, they want to do the best job they can. But more than anything else, they want to have fun, and they're really enjoying working together. They've got great camaraderie. They've got a great rapport between the two of them. They are working together on setups and whatnot. You do have to wonder what tactics they've come up with, because they've got the front row to themselves. That rarely happens in touring car racing, that you get two cars of the same team on the front row together. It's a fairly narrow run into Paddock Hill Bend. Assuming they both get off the line fairly well, and there is the potential for them to sort of run a bit of a tag team thing and just keep everyone behind them. It's going to be easier said than done, because you've got Josh Price there right behind. He had a fuel surge issue, which is what his problem was on the last lap. We saw him drop back from a decent position in race 1. He was then given a 5-second time penalty for exceeding the track limit, so he'll be fired up wanting a podium and a race win. And Jessica Beckman got her best ever finish in the first race, 4th place for her in race 1, and she starts 4th in this one as well. So there are some hungry hounds in behind those two Cooper TCR cars, but there are two drivers in those Cooper TCR cars who are determined to put on a good showing for the team, for their sponsors, and for themselves, just to get themselves a result. And I think they've got half a chance of doing something here. We're certainly in for action, that much I will guarantee you. Brands Hatch, well, has been gloriously sunny all day, but it has clouded over a little bit, and the wind is just starting to pick up ever so slightly. That will have some sort of effect on the tyre wear. I'm sure we've mentioned all day so far how hard it's been on tyres. Slightly cooler ambient temperatures will mean slightly cooler track temperatures, although it takes the track quite a bit of time to cool down, even after the sun's been off it. That might just ease the strain, possibly, being put on those front tyres. because these cars are all front-wheel drive. All TCR cars have to be front-wheel drive across any of the championships around the world. No rear-wheel drive cars allowed, but that means the front wheels are doing all of the steering, the bulk of the braking, and of course they're dealing with the power output as well, and that's why front tyres on front-wheel drive cars get particularly worn out. There's Ollie Taylor, led in the early stages of race 1, did everything he could to keep Dan Lloyd at bay. Now what can Dan do from 9th on the grid? We've seen him in both of the previous 2 meetings at Silverstone and Knock Hill come carving through the order and get to the lead fairly swiftly. Is he going to have it that easy this time around there? Because we saw in race 1, drivers, it hasn't taken them long to cotton on to the fact that Dan Lloyd has been the class of the field in the first few meetings, and they don't really like it because they want to go and win races themselves, and they want to show that they're as quick as Dan Lloyd. And we saw in the early stages of race 1 that when they had a chance to try and get him back in the pack, they were taking no prisoners, and we were really starting to see some quite physical racing, which Howard Fuller alluded to then on the grid. There is Howard, just ahead of Alex Morgan in the Renault Megane TCR car, making its second ever appearance now in TCR UK. Great to have that car on board, and although he is prioritising TCR Germany this year, it'd be great if Alex could come along to a few of the races. I know that he was contemplating coming to a couple of other races later on this year, and as the grid continues to grow and that car continues to get more and more competitive, then it would be really interesting to see whether Alex perhaps could go and challenge for race victories later on in the year. We know Alex Morgan is a quick driver. He's raced single-seaters in Formula Renault, raced to the Sailor Euro Cup as well a few years ago, so he's experienced in single-seaters and tin-tops. Just needs that car to be a little bit further down the development line, I think, to be competitive. So the cars lining up on the grid, another 30 minutes of racing here for round number 6 of TCR UK for 2018. Carl Swift and Stuart Lyons make up the front row of the grid as the red lights go out after a very short hold. It's a good start made by Josh Price there from 3rd on the grid. Stuart Lyons goes backwards. Can Carl Swift hang on to the lead up towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time? Price goes to the outside. I think that Swift will hang on. Ollie Taylor's had another really good start, but Dan Lloyd not a particularly swift one. Look at Lewis Kent. Lewis Kent round the outside of Josh Price for second place up towards Druids. He's skating around under braking. He's very, very wide right out onto the runoff area on the outside of the track, and Price goes back through. So Swift leads, Price second, Kent third, Jessica Beckman fourth, Lyons down to 5th, and here comes Ollie Taylor. Look, he goes past his teammate Finley Crocker, who in turn has Dan Lloyd trying to get through. Now, Ollie could do with Finley doing him a favour here and just trying to get in between he and Dan Lloyd. Taylor goes through, but Dan Lloyd will be on the outside line into the next corner. He's late on the brakes. Can Crocker fight back? He will go for it if he can. He's back up the inside of Dan Lloyd. This is risky stuff for the championship leader. Out on the outside line, coming out of clearways, they're still side by side, and Andreas Beckman is right behind them as well. So Taylor's gone through. Can Lloyd go through as well? At the front of the field, it's Swift from Price, from Kent, from Beckman, from Lyons. Taylor running through in 6th. 7th place is Dan Lloyd, and Andreas Beckman goes on the inside of Finley Crocker as well. Oh, Taylor sideways over the curve, and Lloyd goes around the outside of him. Phenomenal move from Dan Lloyd. He picks up another position, and that possibly was the most important position that he'll pick up, because that was Ollie Taylor, and he all weekend long has been Dan's nearest rival. What's worse for Ollie is that his teammate Finley Crocker, no team orders clearly at Team Pyro, he's gone straight back through in the Verizon Connect liveried car, and there is now a car between Dan Lloyd and Ollie Taylor, but it's in Lloyd's favour. Leading 2 getting away, Kent there in 3rd place. Lloyd still has an awful lot of work to do though, as he now closes in on the back of Stuart Lyons. Stuart's never backwards and coming forwards. He won't want to give this place up without a fight, as Jessica Beckman goes up the inside of Lewis Kent and takes 3rd place away. Jessica Beckman wants a podium, and she wants it now, and she's into 3rd place, and she will now set off after the leading 2, who are still Swift ahead of Price. Beckman 3rd, yes, hangs on to it. Look at them skating around there on that cement dust into Paddock Hill Bend. That is really starting to cause trouble. Here comes Lloyd up the inside of Lyons, looking for that 5th position. I think he's going to get it. Can Finley Crocker follow him through? Stuart Lyons gets eased out onto the wider side of the road, but no, Crocker can't make the move stick, so another place gained by Dan Lloyd into Graham Hill Bend. Next target is Lewis Kent. Now, Lewis Kent, one of the hardest drivers to pass on the circuit, because even if you do get past him, he'll try and fight straight back at the next corner. Carl Swift, though, doing exactly what he promised us on the grid. He is defending this lead for all he's worth, stopping the car almost in the middle of the corner to try and stop Josh Price getting the run on the exit of the turn. Josh is right with him, though, as Dan Lloyd makes his move on Lewis Kent. This is for 4th place now for Dan. The march towards the front continues. Lewis Kent will try and get back in line in front of Stuart Lyons if at all possible, but Stuart is late on the brakes, and and Kent, he turned. I didn't think he was going to turn in. He did turn in on Stuart Lyons, and Stuart decided that it was a better idea just to back out of that before there was contact. So it is now a West Coast Racing third and fourth, and there's the third West Coast Racing car of Andreas Beckman, dicing away with Ollie Taylor. They may have traded a bit of paint there up at Druids, but Beckman of the Andreas variety not really having a great weekend here. Obviously had that damage incurred at the start of race one, which sort of hindered the rest of his race, and then starting down the back in race two, he's not really made that much progress. Billy Crocker there, chasing after Stuart Lyons now as they go up towards the right-hander at clearways. Lewis Kent running wide in front of them, and so Lyons will come back at him, get back up the inside, coming out through the pit straight, and Finley will try and find a gap through as well, if at all possible. That Hyundai's quick in a straight line, though. They're actually fairly evenly matched, but you can see Kent just starting to pull back a length or so. Outside line into paddock, Lyons on the inside, and Crocker now dives on the inside as well. They're all going to meet in the middle, and Lewis Kent had to hang out wide so as to avoid contact, and so I think that Lyons will go back through, and so too, yes, will Finley Crocker. This is typical race three reverse grid race action, isn't it? Because we're seeing the shuffle of the order right the way through the field as the quick drivers try and come forwards, and some of the drivers who haven't yet had a chance to shine at the front of the field not really wanting to give up their opportunity to do so. Speaking of which, Carl Swift is still leading the race. This has been a remarkable performance from the Northerner, who is in his first season of proper touring car racing, if you like. He's done some one-make tin-top stuff in the past, as Jess Beckman, well, something happened there up at Clearways. Jess Beckman has lost third place to Dan Lloyd, and Lloyd is now going for second on Josh Price. What on earth happened there? So Lloyd has gone past two cars in one, but it looked as though there might have been a bit of a hold-up of the Clearways. We'll have to wait and see if we can catch a replay of that, but Dan Lloyd has gone through into second place, and now Carl Swift's got a real test of his nerves and his defensive ability now. Let's see. So Jess got into the back of Josh, or nearly got into the back of Josh. Josh, for whatever reason, had lost momentum there. Now, as I said, it was a fuel surge issue that delayed him at the end of race one, and that did look a bit like the car just wouldn't pick up speed initially coming out of Clearways. Let's hope it's not a repeat of that problem. Here's the Crocker and Lyons squabble still raging on, as Crocker thought about going up the inside, and Lewis Kent is on the grass, and well, Ollie Taylor's race is going from bad to worse, isn't it? Because he's lost two places there. He's lost one place to Howard Fuller. He was trying to get past Lewis Kent, and then Kent got on the grass and delayed him. Right then, battle for the race lead, Dan Lloyd with Carl Swift. Dan will be prepared to sort of take his time over this, but at the same time he knows that he's got some quick cars behind him, in particular Josh Price, so he won't want to hang around too long. Similarly, though, he won't want to risk contact and damage and a non-finish. So Carl Swift knows that he's got that to his advantage, but Law goes up the inside into Graham Hill Bend, and that was a peach of a move. Swift comes back at him, though. Great stuff from Carl Swift. He's got the inside line down towards Surtees, and this could be really risky stuff for Dan Lloyd. Does he dare run around the outside? No, he doesn't. Great stuff from Carl Swift. He's back into the race lead. Price is now on the tail. Oh, they're all bumping and boring a bit into the braking zone, but Swift gets the Cupra back in front. Well, I thought that was a late jink up the inside there for Dan, going down into Graham Hill Bend, and as a result, he ran a bit deep on the exit, and Swifty got the brilliant run on the exit of the corner. So Swift still leads from Lloyd second, Josh Price third, Jessica Beckman fourth, Stuart Lyons in fifth, and Finley Crocker in sixth, and right back with them now as well. And then it's Andreas Beckman in seventh, who's coming on strong as the race goes on. Up towards Druids, and then we're into the part of the circuit where Lloyd attempted to make his move, and for a moment did make his move a lap ago. Crocker around the outside of Stuart Lyons. That might work, because it gives him the inside line down towards Graham Hill Bend. There's no attack for the lead, but there is a change for fifth position as Finley Crocker continues to make his way up towards the sharp end of the grid. Back out of Graham Hill, down the Cooper Straight, dabbing on the brakes. Oh, look at Carl Swift, all over the place through left-hander at Surtees, well over 90, nearly 100 miles an hour through there in race trim. But Carl Swift, thus far, we're only 7 minutes into this 30-minute race, I must admit, but he's done a better job of keeping Dan Lloyd behind him than anyone else has managed to do all season. Into Paddock Hill Bend they're about to go, though, and Dan is more than close enough to throw one up the inside if he wishes. Plays it safe, though, goes to the wide line on the way in, hoping to try and get the cutback on the exit, which he doesn't do, actually. Swift, despite going in on such a tight line, got really good speed out of Paddock. I tell you what, that Cupra is driving really well. We said that they've got a good race setup on that car. They didn't bother looking at a qualifying setup, instead focusing on the long-run speed for these 30-minute races. And so that is clearly working well, because the car has a good balance, it's very drivable, and Carl Swift is a good driver. He's maybe not someone that most people will have come across, but he's done a lot of tin top racing at club level in the UK, and well, put him in a TCR car. He's very competitive, so too is Jess Beckman, who dives at the inside of Josh Price and puts him out into the gravel. And Josh, has that damaged the car, or is that just a return of the problems from earlier? Josh Price appears to be losing pace. Jessica Beckman, though, is back onto the podium, and Finley Crocker, looking for his first ever podium in TCR racing, is right with her. Oh, Carl Swift runs a bit wide there through paddock, and there was almost contact with Dan Lloyd as he ran into the back of him. Crocker's wide in the background as well. That cement dust is causing absolute carnage. Paddock Hill Bend, but Dan Lloyd trying to go around the outside of Swift at Druids. Is Swift going to show him the edge of the road on the exit? No, he leaves Lloyd plenty of space. Gentlemanly driving there from Carl Swift, and Lloyd goes through, but can Carl come back at him on the exit of Graham Hill Bender? Wonder there's damage to the back of Dan Lloyd's car, so he's had contact from somebody, but this time around Lloyd has made it through. Oh, Swift with a wheel on the grass there as he tries to wrestle the car through Surtees. This is phenomenal racing, but you do sense that Dan Lloyd might just start to pull a bit of a gap now. He's got the pace, we know, in clean air to lap a little bit quicker than they have been so far in this race. Alex Morgan in the pit lane, I'm afraid, the Vukovic squad with more work to do on that car, it would seem. Towards paddock they go. Lloyd the new leader, Swift second, Jessica Beckman third, Finley Crocker fourth, then Stuart Lyons fifth, and Andreas Beckman up into sixth place, of course, with the demise of Josh Price. Although I say demise of Josh Price, he's actually continued on his way. Whoops, Crocker into the pack of Jess Beckman. Well, Jess will give as good as she gets, so if he does find a way through as a result of a bit of contact, he can well expect to get it straight back at the next corner. Looks for the over-under, more contact between the two of them. These West Coast racing cars are getting beaten around a little bit today, aren't they? But Crocker still can't quite find a way up into third place. He looks a bit quicker than Jess at the moment. In fact, Finley looks like one of the fastest cars on the track, but that's not the way to go through clearways. Locks up, runs wide, Stuart Lyons gets back alongside him. He'll need a bit of momentum now through the straight to try and keep Stuart at bay, and just about manages to inch perfectly, chop across the nose of the Maximum Motorsport machine. So Crocker still running in fourth position. The lead gap is 0.8 of a second between Dan Lloyd and Carl Swift. Third place still Jessica Beckman. And here comes Andreas Beckman. So he did sort of come on strong towards the second half of race one. As we now approach the 1/3 mark of race two, he is just about picking his way up the order now, isn't he, Andreas? In but to sixth place, just behind Stuart Lyons, and looking to the inside in towards Graham Hill Bend, but Stuart was always going to turn into the apex there, and Andreas will have to try and figure out another way of getting past the number 95 car. There were issues for Josh Price. I don't think the car is damaged from, I don't think that was the overtake that Jess Beckman made on him. I think that is potentially just a return of the mechanical issues that the BMR Autocom Academy car had in race one, and indeed they're not looking at suspension, they're looking in the engine bay, and unfortunately Josh appears to be getting out of the car. Right then, leaders back through. Now Dan Lloyd is not racing away from Carl Swift here, is he? In fact, Carl was faster than him by a tenth on the previous lap. He's certainly trying his Carl Swift, and he has to keep pushing because he's got all this pressure from cars behind him. So this is a three-way train for second, but actually it's sort of still the battle for the race lead. Dan Lloyd not a million miles up the road. Crocker again running wide out of Druids, needs to be careful not to get pinged for exceeding the track limits through there. The Verizon Connect machine run by Pyro, who run Ollie Taylor's car. So they are teammates, even though they run with different liveries. Ollie, incidentally, is 8th place at the moment in this one, and 2 seconds behind Howard Fuller, who is 7th. Oh, Crocker! Finley Crocker loses the rear of the car, and, well, miraculously finds the one bit of tarmac runoff area that's available there at Clearways, and as long as he hasn't stalled the car, which I fear he might have done, no, he's going to get going again, so Finley will rejoin, but that's a shame. We heard Bryn saying, didn't we, on the grid, that the rear end of that car has been very lively. Finley doesn't really like it. We saw him have a few rear end snaps for that part of the circuit in race one, but this one was the biggest yet. Look at that, hits the curb, unsettles the rear of the car, and then he hits the brakes as the car is still unsettled, and around she goes. So Finley Crocker very lucky not to get beached in the gravel, equally lucky not to back it up into the tyre wall, and at least he'll live to fight another day, but he crosses the start finish line down in 10th position. Josh Price's race appears to be done, unfortunately. He's out of the car, the helmet's off, and we'll see whether Bryn can maybe head down and catch up with them and see what the problem is. But well, they're looking all over the car. It's taken a bit of a bang in the tail, but I don't think that's the reason that it's in the pit lane. That's just pretty standard touring car damage, really, isn't it? So anyway, Josh Price out of the race. Dan Lloyd leading the race by only 1.3 seconds, though, over Carl Swift in second. And Jessica Beckman looking for that elusive first podium. We thought she might have done it in the reverse grid race at Knock Hill last time out. Then she had got contact with Ollie Taylor and a couple of other little moments. Then in race 1 today, she was 4th, and she was, you know, on the tail of the podium runners in the early stages. So Jessica looking for that podium in this race. Stuart Lyons running in 4th. That would be his best finish of the year so far, if he can keep Andreas Beckman at bay. Well, I said that we might be able to catch up with Bryn down in the pit lane, and I believe that he has got something for us.
Yeah, thanks very much there, Andy. I'm with Josh, who, as you can see, has got out of his car that's taken a bit of damage as well.
Yeah, we retired from nearly retired from the first race with what we thought was fuel surge. Car kept cutting out. After lap 2 of that race, same feeling. Put the power down, car cuts out. And that's what the damage was from, just cut out and everyone behind just ploughs into you, so there's not a lot we can do, really.
Very frustrating from your point of view, because after Knock Hill, everything was looking quite sweet, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've struggled all weekend with power, but perhaps it might be a fuel pump that's breaking down. It's that kind of symptoms, but we're not going to know. The 10-minute repair time, we was never going to... We gambled with fuel surge, but obviously wasn't.
Yeah, well, if there's any bonus, I'm not sure what you can take from this weekend. Is there anything that strikes?
A bit of rear bumper damage, I think. I think that's all we can take from it. The handling of the car has been faultless all weekend. Just the power to car ratio is just nowhere near where it needs to be able to race at the front.
Thank you very much, mate. Unlucky, but thank you.
Cheers.
Well, Bryn, I've got another job for you now, because Finley Crocker has just pulled in right next to Josh Price. So Finley Crocker's race also appears to be run, unfortunately. He had that spin, of course, but I don't think that did any damage to the car. So unfortunately, Finley out of the race as well. Right, back with the Stuart Lyons and Andreas Beckman squabble. This is for 4th position, and Andreas, who's kept it a little bit cleaner in this second race. So it has to be said that he was on the receiving end of most of the contact in race 1 in the early stages, including that mammoth save that he made up at this corner Surtees. At the front of the field, I don't know what Dan Lloyd is doing here, whether he's really managing the tyres, but he just did a lap time that was half a second slower than Carl Swift, and Carl is busy defending from Jessica Beckman. Dan Lloyd's last lap time was a 51.2. Now, to give you some reference, he set the fastest lap in race 1, did Dan Lloyd, a 49.6. So he's 0.8, he was well over a second slower than his fastest lap in race 1. Now, maybe that he's managing the tyres. The ambient temperature, although it has clouded over, it's still very high. But I don't know, that seems strange. He's picked the pace back up on the next lap and got the gap back out over a second. But this, you never know what's going on inside the cars. Dan might just be backing off to look after the tyres, or he might be nursing some sort of an issue. Stuart Lyons certainly has an issue, and that issue is Andreas Beckman, who is right on his tail. This is the closest battle on track for the time being, for 4th position. And Andreas launches up the inside. Oh, if he gets the car stopped, that's a brilliant move. He uses all the road to get the car stopped, but he does get it stopped, and he goes through. Or does he know? Stuart comes back at him. This is typical touring car racing, and typical of Stuart Lyons. As soon as you pass him, he's straight back up the inside like a rat up a drain pipe, trying to get the place back, which he does. And so as we move into the second half of the race, Stuart Lyons briefly loses 4th place, only to then immediately retake it later on round the same corner. Lead gap stayed about the same, 1.2 seconds that time around. This battle, though, is going to rage on and on, I think, because they seem fairly evenly patched at the moment, Stuart Lyons and Andreas Beckman. And look who's catching them as well. The blue car in the background is Howard Fuller, who we really didn't get to see much of in race 1, because, of course, he had that spin on the first lap. Well, Howard, running in 6th place now, is starting to really close in on the cars in front. Oh, the inside goes Jessica Beckman. Oh, no, into the side of Carl Swift. And Carl Swift gets edged out to the edge of the road. And Jessica Beckman, well, she was coming through there whether Carl liked it or not. And she takes over 2nd place. Flash of the headlights there from Swift. He wasn't best pleased with that, but Jessica will be well on her way now. She'll be chasing down her teammate Dan Lloyd if she can. Stuart Lyons in 4th position there. Swift got some damage, or is that the red mist descending there? He ran very wide into Paddock Hill Bend. He'll be frustrated with that, because he was keeping good pace. As I've been documenting, he was more than matching Dan Lloyd's speed, which, as we go into the second half of the race, was boding pretty well. But now he's down to 3rd place. Well, we saw Finley Crocker pulling into the pit lane a moment or two ago, and Bryn is down in the pit lane with him.
Yeah, I am, with a pretty dejected Finley Crocker. Before race 2, we talked about the car, and you said it was feeling like it was a bit loose at the back end, and it seems to be continuing.
Yeah, that time it actually felt like something broke. I'm not entirely sure, but it just, as soon as I went to change direction, left to right, and lean on the left side, it just wanted to come straight round. And by that point in time, well, I was already running last. I'd gone from 4th with good pace on the car, to be totally honest with you, to last. And I value my own life a wee bit too much, so we weren't going to get any points. So yeah, just parked it.
I know that you always say that you prefer the first 3 or 4 laps of a race anyway, so what can you take from this weekend?
An early flight home. No, seriously, the car was good. We got the pace there. I just need to get some more time in it and start driving it properly. And we could maybe get some results. I mean, the annoying thing is I could see I was as quick, if not quicker, than the 3 in front of me. I kind of reckon that Dan was probably holding Carl Swift up a bit and backing him into Jessica, and then he had the pace to go. But yeah, I enjoyed the first few laps and see where we go from there.
It's good to see you back with some more pace though, because I know you were struggling earlier.
No, the car's, there's no excuses from the car's point of view at all. The car's perfectly good enough. Setup was good. We haven't really changed much all weekend. You know, we arrived with a setup, made a couple of changes, and have more or less stuck with that, and it's been good. I just need to learn to drive it a bit better in race conditions, I think, and we'll see where we go from there.
Nice one. It's not such a hot day, but friendly. Thank you.
Hot. Thanks. Cheers, mate.
Actually, before we hand back to Andy, if we have a look quickly down the pit lane here, we'll see there are 3 cars lined up. We got Finney's car, we've got Josh Price's car, and a bit further beyond there, we've got Alex Morgan's car as well. So 3 cars in this race here have all been ruined from Brands Hatch. Brands Hatch has left its mark on these 3.
Yeah, it's taken its toll on everyone, I think, hasn't it? And the racing is not over yet, though. This is the fight for the final step of the podium, and it's an inter-team fight because we've got both of the Maximum Motorsport cars together now, Carl Swift and Stuart Lyons, and then throw in Andreas Beckman for guaranteed action, and you've got a 3-way fight for the remaining 11 minutes of the race to try and get onto the podium. It would be, for Carl Swift and Stuart Lyons, their first ever TCR podiums, of course, if they could do it. Andreas Beckman has been on the podium before. In fact, he's been on the podium 3 times so far this year, but not yet this weekend, and he has lost second place in the championship to Ollie Taylor as a result. Ollie, though, in this race is running down in 7th, so every place that Andreas can gain is a benefit for him in the championship, and he's up the inside of Stuart Lyons there. This would be for 4th place. They'll run side by side out of the corner, but we've been here before, remember. Beckman thought he made a move stick up there a few laps ago, only for Stuart to come right back at him. This time, though, Stuart is on the outside line, heading towards Paddock Hill Bend. Fairly evenly matched in a straight line, similar shaped cars as well, of course, the Golf and the Cupra, and it will be the Golf that goes through on the way into Paddock. Stuart thinks about fighting back on the exit, looks to the inside towards Druid, and Andreas has to move over to cover. But it will be Beckman into 4th place. What can he do about Carl Swift? Dan Lloyd leads by 2.3 seconds over Jessica Beckman in 2nd place. 3rd is Carl Swift. 4th, and with the fastest lap, is Andreas. So Andreas Beckman in that 4th position has set the fastest lap of the race, and the only man to have done a 49-second lap. 49.939 is about 0.3 of a second off what Dan Lloyd did in race 1. So it's a good pace set by Andreas Beckman. But could we get a West Coast Racing 1-2-3? It's been on the cards all year, and they just haven't quite been able to do it. Well, they're 1-2-4 at the moment, and there's one man standing in their way, and that man with the unenviable job of trying to keep the 3rd West Coast Racing car off the podium is Carl Swift. But if ever there was a man who's capable of doing it, it's Carl Swift, as we saw from that spectacular defensive job that he did to keep Dan Lloyd at bay in the early stages of the race. He will not give in, and if he can get a podium, that would mean the world to Carl, who prior to running with Maximum Motorsport was basically running that car on his own. And that, of course, is one of the joys of TCR racing, is that once you've got the car, you can run it on your own, and because there is a spending cap, and it's not just a case of the richest teams spending all the money and making their car the quickest, you can run a team with a small family-run team and be just as competitive as a West Coast Racing or a Pyro Motorsport. And Carl Swift was attempting to do that at the start of the year. Then he joined forces with Stuart Lyons before this weekend, and that is a partnership that I think is going to become very fruitful as the year goes on. Carl Swift with a really, really promising performance in this race, and give him the track position, and he's a real fighter. He runs a bit wide there though at Druids. Oh, there's contact with Andreas Bachmann, wants to try. Oh no, damage to Beckman's car, damage rear left suspension, and I don't think Andreas knows it. He's still going quickly, but there's definitely some damage to the rear left corner of the car. The tyre is rubbing heavily on the bodywork, and Carl Swift, well now which way does he go? He goes to the left, Stuart Lyons goes to the right. Andreas, you've got to turn right now, and surely the car won't be able to turn right through clearways. He's going to try, he's keeping on going, but that car is going to have to make his way into the pit lane, surely. No, Andreas Beckmann, well, he's continuing on his way, but I think he realised he has to back out of it, but that was all very unfortunate. He got to the inside of Carl, who had run wide up at Druids, and then the two just merged on the exit of the corner. Carl appears, touch wood, to have got away without any damage, but Andreas Beckmann out of the race, surely, and that would appear to be the end of the hopes of a West Coast Racing 1-2-3. There's the contact. Well, Andreas dished it out first and then leant on Carl on the exit of the corner, and there's only so many times you can do that. The rear suspension on a touring car is notoriously susceptible to damage, and that was a real shame that it had to come to that. It had been a terrific drive from Andreas, just picking his way through, but unfortunately he will surely have to come into the pit lane to retirement. So new order: Carl Swift third, Stuart Lyons fourth, and Howard Fuller fifth, and quicker than the pair of them. So Howard Fuller will be sniffing an opportunity for a podium here. There's Andreas Beckmann just limping his way back around to the pit lane, and well, he won't be happy, but the first move was made by him, essentially. He got up the inside, ran out wide, and then once they made contact once, the cars just kept clattering together like castanets, and that was the end of the day for him. So Swift in third, Lyons in fourth, and Fuller in fifth. Now Howard Fuller on the previous lap was 3.5 tenths quicker than these two. There is Howard. Howard's been saying to myself and Bryn all weekend long that when he raced at Silverstone with us last time out, he was far too tentative. He hadn't raced any sort of racing car for over 3 years when we went to Silverstone at the start of the year. This time he was ready to get his elbows out and be a bit more aggressive, especially if there's a chance of a good result. Beckmann's car is in, and his race surely is done. The West Coast Racing squad will have a look at the rear left corner, but I'd imagine that driving the next half a lap at full speed probably didn't do it that much good either. Here, though, is the fight. This is the fight for third. Two Cupras ahead. Oh, ahead of Howard Fuller and Carl Swift on the ragged edge through Paddock Hill Bend. Brilliant car control. We've seen that on a few occasions from Carl this weekend. Can he keep Stuart Lyons and Howard Fuller at bay? We'll have to wait and see. We'll head down, though, quickly to the pit lane with Bryn.
Yeah, thanks so much there, Andy. We're having a look right now at Andreas Beckmann's car. You can see the damage he took on there from that contact. The team came straight in, put it straight up on the jacks, and they are looking like they're going to change the tyre, although looking at that tyre, I think there might be other problems as well. It's definitely overheating, as they always do when they pull them in there, but they're just checking out the axle too. I think they may have taken a bit more damage than just a bit of a smash on the rim itself, so it might be game, set and match for Andreas.
Yeah, I think you might be right. You saw when the initial contact happened that the rear left of the car just dipped dramatically. I don't think that was just a puncture. This was when he continued on in third place. I mean, valiant effort, but the car was well, it can't have been a comfortable ride, let's put it that way. And I think he realised as he came out of clearways that the best option was probably just to bail out of it, which he did. But Andreas Beckmann, that's a shame, and West Coast Racing will be gutted that they've lost the opportunity to get that 1-2-3. But they'll be back, hopefully, later on in the season at Castle Combe. Oh, no! Oh, Carl Swift! Carl Swift is off, and that looks like a mechanical problem. Oh, that is heartbreaking for Carl Swift, who was running so well, led the early part of the race, was running in third place with only 5 minutes to go, and he is out of the race. Stuart Lyons is now third, and Howard Fuller's got a genuine shot now at taking a podium finish. He's right on the tail of the remaining Cupra. 4 minutes and 20 seconds left, and Howard Fuller is arriving with some real speed, carries good speed out of Paddock Hill Bend up towards Druids. What can he do? I'm absolutely gutted for Carl Swift, but for either Stuart Lyons or Howard Fuller, this would be an amazing result. Howard's on the inside. Oh, look at them leaning on each other. Howard Fuller trying everything he can to try and get into third place. Stuart defends the inside line to Graham Hill Bend. Howard looking for the cutback on the exit of the corner, gets his nose alongside almost. Is he up alongside it Surtees? I don't think he is. Howard Fuller has not yet had a podium position. He was 5th and 4th at Silverstone, and of course he finished down in 10th in race 1 today. He and Stuart Lyons, both after their first ever TCR podium, and they are inches apart with only 3 minutes and 40 seconds left. That was remarkable coming out of Druids there as the two cars just got themselves locked together. Howard wasn't going to lift his foot off the throttle, and Stewart was not going to leave him room on the inside to make the move stick. Here's what happened to Carl Swift. So he comes out of Graham Hill Bend, and it just lets go. It just lets go, and that, I'm afraid, looks rather expensive for Carl Swift. Stuart Lyons did well not to run into the back of him. I can't see any fluid being dropped though. And Howard Fuller goes third. Howard Fuller this time around has done it. He is into a podium position, and can he hold on to it now? Can he pull away from Stuart Lyons to hold on to third place? It's been a remarkable turnaround this from Howard Fuller, from 10th place after a first lap spin in race 1. Well, here's how he did it. Similar story to last lap, I think. Stuart Lyons ran wide, and this time it was a little cleaner. We had the obligatory bit of touring car contact, but Howard Fuller did go through and into a podium place. Oh, Lewis Kent is in the pits now, I'm afraid. There are going to be more cars in the pit lane and on the track at the end of this race. It's been a real race of attrition, unfortunately. Lewis appears to have been off the pace all race, really. Hasn't been a factor like he was in race 1 when he got that podium result. But Howard Fuller into the podium positions now. Knowing Howard like I do, he will be well aware of the significance of this, and I just hope that he doesn't get too carried away here, because Stuart Lyons is not far behind him. Of course, Stuart as well will be itching to get back onto the podium, but it is Howard Fuller then, former BTCC racer, former VW Cup racer as well, who is into a podium position. Lewis Kent, looks like this might be a front left tyre issue. We said that we thought we might see some of this weekend, and Lewis has been, it must be said, one of the harder drivers on his tyres this weekend. He drives that car around at some weird and wacky angles, but it's not necessarily conducive to good tyre life. Dan Lloyd, remember him, he's leading the race, and he is on for 6 from 6, which is a remarkable achievement in itself. It's easy to forget how hard this is to do. I know that people have this impression that Dan Lloyd has got the pace and he can just turn up and walk away with every race victory, but he still has to drive the car, he still has to get the car set up right, and he has had a few issues with the car setup this weekend, but he's come out on top and is now only a minute and a half away from a race victory. Dan's been in the pits.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just having a look at Lewis Kent's car. He's just come into the pits a few moments ago. They took 2 of the tyres off, 2 front tyres off, and both of them have taken some pretty serious damage, or a bit of abuse, I should say, really, and they've replaced the tyres. But we did say this before race 1, actually. Lewis is very, very quick, but he is quite hard on those tyres, and it seems to have got him in race 2.
Yeah, it's a real shame after that podium performance in race 1, but he rejoins the track just in front of Howard Fuller, so that's one more car for Howard to overtake, albeit not on the same lap. Oh, and Howard did not need that. Lewis now gets out of there. There's nowhere Lewis could go there. He came out to the pit lane at the worst possible time, in a way, but he does now back right off to let them go through. He'll keep circulating, because as long as you finish the race, you will score some points, and Lewis, that podium finish that he had in race 1 did elevate him in the championship, actually, up into, I believe, 6th place in the points for Lewis Kent, so he'll be eager to try and get as many points as he can. Dan Lloyd, though, comes through the final corner again, nursing it home here with 1 more lap to go, so we're going to get the full 35 laps out of this one, so 1 lap less, actually, than we got in the first race. That's because the pace has not been anywhere near as quick. Most of the lap times in the 50s and even the 51-second bracket towards the end of the race. That was a 51.7 for Dan Lloyd, but he's possibly slowing this down for the photo finish between he and his teammate Jessica Beckman. Well, what can we say about Jessica Beckman? She's been feisty all year, but podium material, well, that was questionable at times, but she has really turned it around this weekend. It's been a stunning drive, this, from Jessica Beckman. Not only is it going to be her first ever podium, it's going to be a 2nd place finish and a 1-2 for West Coast Racing. They've had 1-2s in the past with Dan and Andreas. This time, though, it will be Dan and Jess who will bring home the silverware. It's not going to be the 1-2-3 that it looked like was on the cards up until that contact for Andreas Beckman, but it will be a 6th win of 2018 for Dan Lloyd. Dan Lloyd flashes the lights and takes the checkered flag here at Brands Hatch, and it's a 1-2 for West Coast Racing with Jess Beckman in 2nd. Howard Fuller comes home an ecstatic 3rd and a fighting 4th place for Stuart Lyons. He'll be reasonably happy with that, I think. That's by far the best result of the season so far for Maximum Motorsport. Ollie Taylor, incidentally, will come home in 5th position, and Darryl Wilson 6th. Not on the pace in that race, either of these two. Clearly some issues for both of the cars, but with the rate rate of attrition for everyone else. They've been able to pick up some decent points. Lewis Kent will come home in 7th, whilst we lost Carl Swift, Andreas Beckman, Finley Crocker, Josh Price and Alex Morgan, unfortunately, quite early on in that race. Dan Lloyd victorious, Jessica Beckman second and Howard Fuller third. So many feel-good stories there. Dan Lloyd dominance continues. Jess Beckman with that amazing second place finish, and Howard Fuller. Well, Howard Fuller was in tears at Silverstone when he qualified it third on the grid. To have finished third in a race, well, he might have a complete breakdown now in the paddock after this race. He will be very, very pleased with that indeed. Championship-wise, of course, Ollie Taylor's second place in the championship is now safe because Andreas Beckman didn't finish. So Taylor will, yes, he'll drop some more points to Dan, but he will at least consolidate second place in the championship. Here's confirmation of the result. Lloyd with the victory, Jess Beckman in second, Howard Fuller third, Stuart Lyons in fourth, and Ollie Taylor coming home in fifth. Sixth place for Darrell Wilson, seventh for Lewis Kent. He was classified a finisher, but not classified a finisher, I'm afraid, are Carl Swift, Andreas Beckman, Finley Crocker, Josh Price and Alex Morgan. But it's a shame, actually, particularly with Price and Crocker. We've had all of those drivers had the potential to finish on the podium, and unfortunately they all fell by the wayside. There is Carl Swift. He'll be gutted after that one. Really did look as though he was going to get that first podium for himself, first podium for Maximum Motorsport. Motorsport is a cruel mistress sometimes. Carl knows that better than anyone right now. Dan Lloyd, though, is riding the crest of the wave at the moment in TCR UK. Can anybody stop him? Well, Castle Combe is our next stop on July the 14th and 15th. The competition's definitely getting closer to him. Dan, though, steps out of the car, pats the roof of his Volkswagen Golf TCR car, heads over to congratulate him by the teams. 6 wins from 6 races is a remarkable achievement. Who knows what will happen next? Remember, we've got lots of interest from other teams and drivers, high-profile teams and drivers wanting to get involved in this. And, well, they could well come in and spring a surprise. There's Howard Fuller, all 6 foot odd of Howard Fuller. How he folds himself into a racing car, I'll never know. He's not taking the helmet off because he doesn't want anyone to see that he's rather emotional, I imagine, underneath the helmet. So, too, I think, is Jessica Beckman with that remarkable drive to second place. A feisty, bruising drive at times, but Jessica Beckman, who is one of the quietest and most unassuming characters walking around the paddock, is Jessica. Stick her in a racing car and she takes no prisoners, and she proved that absolutely in that race once more. Well, the drivers are getting out of their cars. I see Bryn Lucas is on the case, ready and waiting to talk to our 6-time race winner, Dan Lloyd.
Yeah, thanks very much there, Andy. Dan has just come running away. 6 races, 6 wins, but that one was not easy by any means.
No, it wasn't. It was good fun. Gutted for, I don't know what happened to Carl at the end, but gutted for him. He put up a mega fight. Really tough. I thought I had him into Graham Hill. I put a late move on him and managed to get the cutbacks. I had to sort of settle and do it all again. So I had to push a lot harder at the start in that one. So at the end, I had all sorts of noises happening and scraping with bodywork. So every lap I was thinking, oh, I'm punctured, but managed to get away with it. So yeah, it's great.
First time I think we've really had to see you, other than race 1 with Ollie, have to defend and fight back as well, because as you say, Carl really put up a fight.
Yeah, it was good. Like I say, you know, it shows a lot about the championship. It is competitive and I had to really work for it. And it's not just leading, which I've shown I can do, but getting through the traffic cleanly and taking my time and everything like that. So, yeah, just not trying to take it all for granted, working hard every time, trying to work harder than everyone else. And everyone keeps saying it looks easy, but I'm working harder than I ever have done to keep going with it. So, yeah, really pleased. Big thanks to West Coast Racing. They repaired the car in 15 minutes and did a mega job, and congrats to Jessica as well.
Actually, we've got Dan's teammate Jessica here. Now, Jessica, you can dry your eyes. It's all right. That was an inspired second. Well done.
Thank you. I had a quite good start, and then I was behind a lot of drivers, but I knew I was faster, so I had to overtake as fast as I could because there was so many drivers behind me. So, but in the end, I overtook them and I got a gap, so I'm so happy.
Now, I'm going to, maybe a silly question, but to ask you what it means to you, I think is a silly one, but what does it mean to you to have a second, not just a podium, but a second place?
It means everything to me. My goal this year was to get a podium, and now I got this, so I'm so happy. And I also need to thank Dan Lloyd for his helping us all year, so I'm so happy. And also thanks to all the team that done a great job, so I'm very happy.
Do you know what? We could sit and stand and watch you shaking because you're so happy, but I'm going to let you go and compose yourself. That was incredible, incredible. Well done there to Jessica Beckman, second place. And Howard, I expected tears from you as well, actually. Have we got some?
Yeah, I mean, it's very emotional, isn't it? I feel like, you know, it's the way the team are doing things and the way we do things as well. It's different, and it's obviously working. I know we got a little bit lucky with some people tripping over each other, but you know we all have the same opportunity. There's no doubt about that. And so how people won the race is completely up to them. So I just kept my nose clean as best as I could. But when I saw my pit board for P5 and the guys in front of me are tripping over each other, I thought, you know, we really got this. And I just wanted to save some tyres at the end, but I threw caution to the wind and just went for it. So I'm really happy.
Well, it's one of these things. It wasn't handed to you by any means, because you still have to be there to take the opportunity when it comes.
No, absolutely. And you've got to be in the fight. And it's like I said to you on Facebook Live, it's going to be the last 5 or 6 minutes when obviously tyre and brake management is very important, but your physical fitness and mental approach is strong. And I knew I was going to catch those guys. So I was really happy. We've got some awesome supporters. I really wouldn't be here if it wasn't our sponsors and investors. Huge support from family and friends, and Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's just been going off the hook. So I'm so happy to have such great support.
That trip to Houston now was a very good idea.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's it. Maybe a few beers by the pool is the way to go, eh? But no, thank you so much for having us, guys, and I hope everyone enjoyed it at home. And look forward to the next one.
Fantastic. Go and get your trophy. Go and get your place on the podium. Well done there to Howard Fuller. I mean, that was phenomenal. We had Jessica in tears, and Howard in tears, and she's still crying, bless her. But anyway, there you go. Back to Andy.
Do you know what? It's moments like this, Bryn, that remind us all why we love this sport. There are times where we wonder why we like it, but there are other times where it just gets you. And seeing the emotion, the raw emotion of Jessica Beckman there in particular, as she got out of that car. That is her first ever podium in a racing car. She's done rallycross in the past, so too has Andreas, but she's never finished on the podium in a race before on a circuit, a sort of sealed surface term, a circuit like this one. And it is remarkable to see just how much this matters to them. Here are the points then after this weekend, and Dan Lloyd oh so nearly has a 100-point margin over Ollie Taylor in second place. 99 points is the difference between the two of them. Ollie is now a slightly more comfortable second place over Andreas Beckman in third, but look at that, Jessica is now only 3 points behind Andreas in the overall championship standings. So the Beckman sibling rivalry intensifies ever further, because at the start of the season it really did look like Andreas had the edge in performance over Jessica, but I'm not so sure that's still the case. Jessica really is learning very, very quickly indeed. It's also close between the next two, Lewis Kent and Howard Fuller, both of whom have scored some decent points this weekend. Lewis Kent 5th place in the championship and Howard Fuller 6th. Daryl Wilson in 7th. He'll be hoping for maybe some slight tweaks to the balance of performance for next time out, because he has struggled for pace this weekend. So too Josh Price in 8th place. We're hoping to see a second BMR Auto Glim Academy car out at Castle Cube next time as well, to watch this space on that one. Stuart Lyons 9th, and Finlay Crocker rounding out the top 10 in the points. And of course Finlay could have been that little bit further up the order had he not had that spin right towards the end of that race. Well, the TCR podium, the Brands Hatch podium, is looking beautiful. Jen Maratzing, well, if ever there was anyone who's going to show some emotion, Jen Maratzing from TCR UK, always going to be displaying just how much this means to her, and she will be very happy indeed to see those 3 drivers making their way up onto the podium. She's ready to hand over the trophies to, first of all, Howard Fuller, who makes his way out from the podium room, handshakes all round, and he heads onto the 3rd step off the podium. A very, very happy Howard Fuller gets the hug from Jen, and step up now onto the 3rd step of the podium. Here comes Jessica Beckman. Jessica Beckman is rather pleased with her afternoon's work, I think. It's been a really good day for Jess as well, it must be said, because remember she was 4th in the first race, so actually with everyone else's ups and downs, she's ended up being one of the highest scoring drivers of the weekend. Not quite as high scoring as her teammate though. Dan Lloyd with another maximum points haul. He hasn't dropped a single point all year long. When will this run end? You feel that surely it has to at some point. Time being, he's rather enjoying the performance that he's able to put out there every week. West Coast Racing, of course, winning team as well, and there are 3 bottles of champagne that are ready and waiting to be burst open, and they restrained themselves after race 1 because they had to use the race suits again later on that day. I don't think they'll be saving that to be drunk later. I think there'll be a bit of a celebration up here on the podium as the photos begin to get taken and they get directed over into the corner. That'll be a nice shot. And Dan Lloyd, Jessica Beckman, Howard Fuller, your podium finishers for round number 6 of TCR UK 2018 Championship. Back up onto the podium, and yep, here it comes. The champagne is about to be sprayed, and the crowd... Oh, there we are. Jessica's not waiting. There she goes. As in the racing car, she's the same up on the podium. She's not hanging around. And they see that's the mistake that you make. When you go early, you've got nothing left to fight back when the other two come at you. So Jessica, the more podiums she gets, the more she'll learn about that, I think. But she won't be complaining too much. So Dan Lloyd, a race winner for the 6th time this season. Jessica Beckman takes a career-best 2nd place finish. And likewise, Howard Fuller with his first ever podium, and he comes home 3rd. Next rounds of TCR UK, don't forget, coming up at Castle Combe on July the 14th and 15th. Before we move on to that, let's take a look back at the highlights from a sensational race. Carl Swift it was who led from pole position initially from Josh Price and a fast-starting Lewis Kent as the cement dust at Paddock Hill Bend in the early stages from a previous race caused all sorts of issues all race long. It was all very feisty in the midfield as Dan Lloyd took potentially unnecessary risks driving around the outside of people to eventually find himself 2nd behind Carl Swift. Beckman made her intentions known, diving up the inside of Josh Price, who retired with mechanical issues. So too, unfortunately, did the Renault Megane TCR car of Alex Morgan. They came in on the same lap for retirement. Out on the track, Jessica Beckman got up the inside of Carl Swift, Carl having already lost the lead to Dan Lloyd, and barged her way through into 2nd place, a position she would not give up. Swift was hanging on desperately to 3rd place. Andreas Beckman got ahead and then leant on the Cupra and broke his rear left suspension. That was game over for Andreas Beckman. He had to go into the pit lane to retire. He tried valiantly to hang on though for half a lap with a car that clearly wasn't right, eventually bailing out and coming into the pits to retire. That put Carl Swift back into 3rd place, and it looked as though he was on for a sensational podium finish until mechanical failure struck him as well, putting him into retirement. That meant his Maximum Motorsport teammate Stuart Lyons moved through into 3rd place, but with Howard Fuller right on his tail. Dan Lloyd took the race victory. 2nd place went the way of Jessica Beckman, and Howard Fuller found a way through into 3rd. Well, it's been a fantastic weekend racing here at Brands Hatch. More of the same to be expected in 6 weeks' time at Castle Combe. July the 14th and 15th, the high-speed circuit in the southwest of the country will put on a heck of a show, I'm sure. We're hoping for a bigger grid, more new faces appearing on the track. We cannot wait to see what happens. Thank you very much for joining us here at Brands Hatch. We hope that you'll join us next time out at Castle Combe. But for now, from us at TCR UK, it is goodbye.